Yeah, Councillor Harris is up there. Okay, we're going to start the meeting with the land acknowledgement. I'm going to send that over to the deputy first. Deputy, over to you.
Thank you, Worship. The land on which the city of St. John, or Maniquist, is situated is the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik. The Wolastoqiyik, along with their indigenous neighbors, the Mi'kmaq and the Pescatamaquoddy, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s that protected their rights to lands and resources. Let us pause and reflect.
Okay, I'll ask everyone to please stand for the national anthem. We haven't seen that version for a while. It's a good one, and obviously 2020. Welcome, everyone, this evening. City Clerk, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item on the agenda is 2.1, approval of September 3rd council minutes.
Approval of September 3rd, Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Ogden on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
And Your Worship, just in terms of attendance, I just wanted for the record to confirm the council members that are attending online today, virtually. And so I have Councillor Killen, just wanted to confirm. Showing Councillor Norton, can we just confirm that you can hear us?
Thank you, Common Clerk. I'm in attendance.
Councillor Stewart? And
I'm here.
Thank you. And Councillor Harris?
Yep, I'm here.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Next would be the minutes, item 2.2 of September the 9th.
September 9th minutes, Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Hickey on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is the approval of the agenda, and we have an addition which was submitted to council earlier today. It would become item 16.1, and this is for the public presentation for municipal plan amendment regarding Zero Alloy Drive, as well as item 17.1 from Committee of the Whole, which would be surplus land REOI.
Okay.
And then there's a request to move forward on the agenda, item 10.5, to be dealt with immediately after the consent agenda.
So we decided we would move that forward since we have guests here tonight. We're starting a little bit late. It would give you an opportunity. We have at least another presentation. The 10s don't start at 6:30 per se, so we're moving that up. So if I have can get a motion for that? Oh, sorry. Gail?
Just one item, Your Worship. We did also want to add S17 just to provide an update as it relates to the Housing for All strategy.
Oh, right.
Brief update.
17.2 would be housing for all. All strategy update. Okay, so if I can get you, Deputy, you're moving that, okay, I'll take a seconder on that. Councillor Radwan, on the question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is disclosures of conflict of interest, if we have any.
Councillor Sullivan,
5.1, please.
5.1. Okay. Councillor Hickey,
Thanks, Your Worship. 8.1.
8.1. Oh, yeah, okay. All right,
And Your Worship, just Councillor Killen here, it's 8.1 as well.
okay.
Same with me, Your Worship. Conflicts on 8-1.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Okay. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is item
I was just going to ask, so go ahead.
item 5, which is the consent agenda.
So with Councillor Sullivan declaring a conflict on 5.1, do we pull those out?
Yes, that's a good point. So because Councillor Sullivan's declared a conflict, we simply pull 5.1 and it becomes a 14 on your agenda.
14?
Yep, it would become 14.1. So now the consent agenda is just for item 5.2 and 5.3.
Deputy, over to you. Oh, okay, Deputy, over to you for that first.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move 5.2 and 5.3. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take a seconder, Councillor Sullivan. And on the question, I have Councillor Radwan. Over to you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Director Dion, I just had a question about the comprehensive parking study 5.3. I'm just wondering, I know they'll be looking at a lot of things to figure out parking, especially in the Central Peninsula with this plan. Just wondering how the consultants will be ensuring that they're really taking a look at accessible parking specifically.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship, and through you to the councillor. That's a great question. For the parking study, they're really looking at everything and anything that's parking related in the South Central Peninsula. So our rates, our demand, our supply, accessible parking, alternate side parking, loading zones. They're going to do public engagement sessions. So they've made that clear in their proposal that accessible parking is something that they do want to discuss. And I'm sure they'll look at, different solutions for what we can do to help with the accessible parking issues.
Wanted to just comment quickly if I can.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Thank you so much, Director Dion. That's great. I mean, right now, I think that we're currently showing about 18 or 19 parking spaces just on-street parking for accessible parking compared to over 4,000 spaces that able-bodied people can park in. So I'm hoping that number will go up a lot. So it'll be good to see what the outcome is. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so I have a mover and a seconder on that, and I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Harris opposed? No, in favor? Sorry.
Not in favor, Your Worship.
It's just delay. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Motion carried. Okay, next item, City Clerk.
So next, we've moved forward agenda item 10.1 and 10.5, my apology, and that is a zoning bylaw amendment with section 59 conditions for 1750 Sandy Point Road.
Okay, so 10.5, I'm sending this over to Commissioner Poffenroff for the intro.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship and members of council, before you this evening for third reading is an application for a rezoning that was submitted by 667117NB Ltd. for part of a property located at 1750 Sandy Point Road. The rezoning will permit the development of a multi-unit residential building. The application received first and second reading on September 3rd, following the required public hearing, and I can confirm that all legislative requirements of the Community Planning Act have been met, and the item is now before you to move forward with third reading. Staff is proposing an additional Section 59 condition associated with stormwater management. A supplemental report was included in the agenda package for your consideration. I'll now turn it over to Mark Reed, the senior planner, who will provide a brief overview of the proposed condition. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Your Worship and Council, some additional concerns came to light of city staff last week regarding some existing stormwater drainage issues affecting some dwellings along Lentook Drive. So Community Planning and Infrastructure Development met with the developer's consultant and had some discussions with the developer last week with respect to stormwater drainage from the proposed development. And we're proposing an amended condition that basically gives a bit more rigor with respect to the stormwater design. And what that would do is it would increase the post-development rainfall intensity by 25% when the developer's consultant does the stormwater analysis. So what he's going to do is they will increase that rainfall intensity by 25% beyond what is required by the city's stormwater drainage criteria manual. And what that should do is it will ensure that downstream conditions are not worsened by the proposed development. If you've got any technical questions on stormwater, my colleague Jeremy Clack from Infrastructure Development is here this evening. He's much more well-versed in the field of stormwater engineering and design than I am. But if there's any questions, I can take them from council.
Okay, Councillor Radwan has a question for you, actually.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much, first of all, the staff for making these changes. There was a lot of concerns and some good reasons for that. I probably will direct this to Jeremy if I can. I'm just wondering, Jeremy, if you would mind speaking for the sake of the public, what we kind of talked about as far as worrying about drainage during construction. And then obviously Mark has already talked about how this is going to help mitigate any issues after construction.
Of course. Thank you, Councillor Redwan. So any development in the city of St. John is subject to the requirements of the drainage bylaw, which requires submission of a storm drainage plan, which would contemplate the impacts from development and ensure that there would be no adverse effect created as a result of the development. In short, the developer's consultant must contemplate the rainwater which falls on the site prior to any state of development, and then they must also contemplate the effects of development and what those would be, and then include sufficient controls so that those impacts are mitigated. And as my colleague Mark Reed indicated, the post-development rainfall intensities will be increased by 25%. So there will be an additional burden of stormwater detention on this site to protect against potential future impacts from climate change. And I can confidently say that if these measures are followed and the storm drainage submission meets with is satisfactory to us, and we will be subjecting it to rigorous review, I can confidently say that we do not expect there to be any adverse effect as a result of this development. And
what about like during construction? You kind of talked about usually you're clearing out in the summer where there's not as much rain.
And so to expand on that, and thank you, we do require some additional submissions with our stormwater management plans. There will be an erosion and sedimentation controls plan, which is contemplated. This will consider the impacts of the disturbance of the site and will propose controls to allow, or to prevent rather, the loss of soil from the site as a result of rainwater during construction. Typically, this construction takes place during the summer months, as you indicated, where we have a less intense rainfall events generally. That being said, during the course of a typical construction project, it is expected that the stormwater controls are generally follow the initial site works and site clearing, so that there's minimal impacts. This is not always the case, but it will be an ongoing conversation that infrastructure development has with the developer's consultant to, I guess, roll out a plan so that the impacts during construction can be mitigated as much as possible.
That's great. And I think, the sooner than better to get those rainwater plans in place, but that's great. CAO, Jeremy has been absolutely incredible. And I was just so impressed. You're just so knowledgeable and it's just wonderful. And I always feel confident with staff, but just reinforcing all the time. So it's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got the deputy, and then I see Councillor Harris has his hand up on the screen there. So deputy, over to you first.
Don't go away, Jeremy. Yeah, 25%. Where did that number come from?
That was during conversation that we had with the developer's consultant. We sometimes see 20% as an increased factor. 25% was offered as sort of an additional surety in this case. And it is, I think, a suitably conservative factor to account for future intensification.
Okay. Now, were you down in the subdivision and did you see the people there and talk about their issues?
I wasn't able to speak with any of the folks from the subdivision personally. However, I did receive the reports that were forwarded to Councillor Radwan. I saw the impacts on these homes and noted that there are certainly existing stormwater problems here. That there does need to be some creative solution employed to try to mitigate those impacts. But I would suggest that the development that is before council is not significantly contributing to this, or wouldn't be as a result. The overall area that is draining to that location is much larger than just that one property.
Okay, because see, what I heard when I went down there and I spoke to people and I looked at that water problem, which I've never seen anything like that before. I'd never seen people have whirlpools in their yard. But it's gotten worse over the years. It's never been great, but it's gotten worse as just a couple of houses are built. It makes it worse. So, I mean, and I think that what you're trying to do is great, but I think the bigger issue right now is trying to get that subdivision cleaned up and avoiding it getting any worse at all costs. But thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any other. Oh, no, I have Councillor Harris. Sorry. Councillor Harris, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I have a couple of comments as well as a question. So I'll start with the question. This is less directed toward the technical issues and more toward the sort of the overall common practice of developments like this. So probably to Mr. Mark Reed, possibly to Commissioner Poffenroth. Do we often have prerequisites in place, or have we had prerequisites in place for developments in the past to have sort of engineered drawings on exactly how the mitigation of water would occur at this stage in the process, or do we see those come in at the time of permit for our planning department as well as our bylaw officers to sort of approve, green light or red light them at that phase? I'm just curious.
So I can speak to that, Councillor Harris. The
Sure.
requirements for a stormwater management plan are required for approval of a building permit, not at the rezoning application stage.
Right. Okay. So just going to keep moving through here because that was what my understanding was too. But I understand there's been a lot of changes over the past 4 or 5 years. So in light of that, and to Councillor McKensley's point, I'd say if you've ever seen anything like that, you haven't been over the west side. There's a couple of places over there on the west side where a developer back in the 90s built a subdivision, up and behind Montreal Ave and those places, and there's some serious problems that occurred through the development phases of that era that didn't consider stormwater mitigation appropriately, and now the city is having to backtrack pretty substantially on those. There are places like this in the city, and it is unfortunate when we see sort of haphazard measures employed in the past sort of continue to impact us in the day. Is there any reason, and this goes to my question, is there any reason to believe from a evidence-based perspective here that we will see this condition worsen? And is there any reason to see that this condition would improve with this development and the mitigation factors employed?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Harris. So I will note that some of the subdivisions which you've indicated that were developed in the 90s were designed previous to the city's adoption of our present storm drainage design criteria manual. We have standardized requirements in place to ensure that these sort of problems that have been cropping up do not reoccur. So any development that has occurred since 2008 would have been subject to those same stormwater management rules. As for the second part of your question, can we expect any sort of improvement in the problem or worsening? We will not allow the problem to get worse as a result of this development. The stormwater management plan needs to suitably demonstrate that these impacts will be mitigated and that there will be no adverse impacts as a result of it. As for improving the problem, I don't know, potentially. If they're required to hold more stormwater than would be otherwise required. But as I mentioned to Councillor Radwan previously, the subject site is only a small portion of the overall catchment area that is draining to this problem area behind Lentoke Avenue.
Okay. All right. I think that gets all of my points answered. Your worship, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lowe, over to you.
Yeah, I was out and visited it on Saturday or Sunday. Do you intend to try to solve the problem that exists right now, long before the building on the hill is built? There's a serious problem. There's a lake there that comes up and down with water, and it drains out into the city sewers. It could be plugged. There could be all kinds of things in. I don't think anybody's ever attempted to check it, right? Like, you mean? But the concern of the residents is one of the concerns of the residents is what takes place right today, tomorrow, Saturday, and the next day it rains. And that's when I do believe it'll get no worse by building up the hill. But what has to be done is a problem that exists right today. It's a serious problem to a point where ice freezes on the street and the school bus and plows can't get up the street. And I guess that's the question I'm asking.
I'm going to pass that over to our former water expert.
Thank you.
Now CAO.
Your worship, thank you. We will be looking at that in terms of what measures are required, whose responsibility is, and understanding that. At this point in time, the deputy mayor has requested myself and our commissioner of utilities and infrastructure go out. We're going to do a site visit this week to check out the site and then understand, what the conditions are and if it's a maintenance item or if it needs to be referred for capital and whose responsibility it is. So start to understand that more.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it. Deputy, back to you for your...
This one's for Mark.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Given that the developers have stated that they have a 3-year timeline on this project and they really want to get going, what's the objection to having a 4-year sunset clause on it?
Your worship, through you to the councillor, the utility of sunset clauses, we've debated that before council, and planning staff are of the opinion that, we can't force somebody to build a building. The market could change over that 4-year period, and then the developer could be back here, if the condition was proposed, asking to, have that condition amended to give them additional time. It's interesting that, we've had some discussions with other municipalities in New Brunswick that have gone down the road of sunset clauses or timelines on development, and a lot of them, like Moncton and Dieppe, have actually gotten away from the process because really it's, from an administrative perspective, it's, it is a burden on staff and the developer. Right now we are in a climate where housing is in demand, and we have a lot of interest in St. John to build that. So we don't feel that putting a condition on with respect to a sunset clause is necessary, and it wasn't part of the original staff recommendation.
I understand that, but neither was the additional 25%. A lot of changes happen in 4 years, and that includes climate change. I mean, I would like to see a 4-year sunset clause put on this, and if I had a second, I'd actually make that motion to be added to your section 59s. Thank you. Sure.
Okay, so I don't see, oh, wait now, Councillor Lowe, your light is on?
Motion, I want to speak to it too.
Okay, well, I've got to get we've got the motions here. I'm going to have to get we'll get the motions from the clerk in a second, but I have I have the Commissioner Poffenroff on here.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a really, just a short note that the Stormwater Design Criteria Manual, it's been in place since 2009, and it will be under review this year. So we will be taking a look at it with respect to climate change and the changes coming in the future, so that manual takes us into the future. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. That will be under review later this year.
Thank you. So City Clerk, will we be adding on the sunset clause as the same as the Section 59 condition is added on as a separate item?
Your
No, we have to
Worship,
vote on it separately.
yeah, these would all be voted on separately.
Right,
So it would be
including
a
the
fourth
sunset clause?
motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So we got that there. So are we starting with, yeah, over to you then for start.
If we're ready for the motions, I'll read what.
Wait now, hold on.
Yeah, I've just got a comment, Your Worship, if
That's on
that's
the floor.
okay.
All right, so I guess it's not number 4. So that one there, we'll vote on that for the sunset clause. It's been moved and seconded to put a 4-year sunset clause on the development. Can I do Ms. Poffenroff first for input?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry to buzz in again. We need some clarification too. I mean, sunset clauses, I think we need to be really cautious. We need to provide certainty and predictability to our development community when they go through the process of building our city. So what does the sunset clause mean in this case? If there's a seconder and it's approved, what does it mean? Is it that foundation permit's issued, that the work is complete? Some clarity there, if we go down that route, would be helpful for the developer. And just my caution around sunset clause is it's problematic from a development community. Other best practices is that other municipalities are moving away from it. So I caution council on this, but if you do pursue this, some clarity for the developer would be helpful.
Deputy, what's the clarity?
Thank you, Your Worship. I mean, we've had sunset clauses before. In fact, we just had to extend one, I think it was in the spring. And they're few and far between. It's not on every development by any stretch of the imagination. This would be for completion at 4 years, because we've had an ongoing flooding issue with these residents for the last 30 years. And I'd like to see this put to bed in a timely fashion. And I'd also like to see and that's why we're going out, City Manager, I'd like to see this, situation cleared up. That's the only reason I'm asking for a sunset clause. I don't think I've asked for one before in any other development.
So full completion, you say? I'm going to go to Councillor Ogden for a question, then can I come back to you, Commissioner? Councillor Ogden?
Just on what Commissioner Poppanoff, I don't think it's a decision we should make right now without further information. Commissioner Poppanoff seems to have more information, and I don't think we should rush into this because it's been proven that sunset clauses don't work in a lot of places. So I would like to know more about it before I vote.
Okay, so do we want to have the vote
Or
first?
can we put it off with more information?
I'd like to talk about it. I already said that.
Same with me.
Okay, all right, so let's go to the council then. Councillor Redwine, okay, let's go to the councillors. Councillor Redwine, then I'll go up to Councillor Harris, then I'll come back onto the floor, whoever's got their lights on.
I do wonder,
That's right.
Mayor, procedurally, how does the notice of motion work with this to Jonathan Taylor? Does that come into effect for something like this, or?
No, a notice of motion would only be required if a council member is bringing a new motion that's not on the
Okay.
agenda. In this case, there's already, this topic's on the agenda, and
Okay.
this motion's germane to the topic.
And I just have a comment. So, I understand, I appreciate the deputy's feedback. My feeling on this is that we've had so much change in the last few years. There's been massive challenges for developers to get labor, to get supplies. Things are finally starting to move a little bit. And I think that if council is fine with this development going forward, I would be reluctant to put a sunset clause on it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lowe, over to you.
Yes, the reason I asked for it is that on PAC, I asked the developers how long it would take, and they were very specific. They said 3 years. Then I had people in this area ask for the same thing. They asked, is there any possibility that you could get a sunset clause on this project? And I guess I've always been favored to them. I know staff isn't, but, life goes on. The difference is, if I didn't think that it could be built in 3 years, like they said, then I wouldn't agree to 4. The people that asked me live in that area, and they said 4 years. That's a year longer than what the developer said they could do it in. And when 4 years come, it's like Amy asked the question. If it's not done, they come back to council again. It's the image that the people who live down below feel that this is going to the trucks will stop and that there. It'll be done in 3 years. That's what it is. And this way, it's going to be done in 4 years if we can pass this. And it was a request of the residents that live down below the hill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Harris, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The thing with me is on this is such haphazard decision making for this body to engage in. We have had developers before us in the past and asked them the question, how would you feel about a sunset clause on this? Or we've imposed it where there have been sort of bad actors involved. We're essentially signaling to the development community that these two credible and good developers, as far as the city is concerned, from what I understand, who have completed their projects over the past few years, we're essentially saying you're under the microscope for the sins of the past developers of this subdivision. Right? There is no question that there is a flooding problem there. There are flooding problems in 6 to 7 different communities. You don't get to hold developments hostage for the sins of a past developer. And if Deputy Mayor McKenzie wants to do that, I think that is just out of order, Your Worship, to be honest. I'll certainly be voting against it. We've seen developments in the past that have imposed sort of pretty unique changes on communities, from traffic to other issues, and we've never held them accountable to sort of existing problems if the city wasn't willing to step up and use the taxpayers' money to solve the problems that exist. And I think that's a separate issue here.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I don't see any more lights, so I'm going to call the question. So on the motion put forward by the deputy, seconded by Councillor Lowe, to have a sunset clause at 4 years for full completion, correct? Yeah. City Clerk?
Your Worship, I just wanted to make a recommendation when taking the vote, if we could do a recorded vote and ask each member individually what their vote is, just so it's clear for the record, as we
Okay.
have some people online.
Okay. All right, so I'll ask the question, all in favor. So if you're in favor of that, we'll start with Councillor Lowe.
Councillor Killen.
Councillor Killen. What's your vote?
I'm not in favor, no.
Okay. Who you?
Ogden. We'll just go in order.
Okay,
Councillor
go.
Ogden. Okay.
Councillor Hickey? Councillor Radwan? Deputy?
Councillor Harris.
Yeah, we're going to get up. Councillor Harris is up next.
I'm against.
Who's the deputy's in favor? Come along this way. Who's next?
Councillor Sullivan.
Councillor Sullivan? He's a nay.
Councillor
Oh, wait,
Stewart would be next.
I'm against.
Councillor Lowe?
In favor.
Councillor Norton?
No, Your Worship.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so you've got that. That motion fails. Okay, so over to you then for the next motions.
Thank you, Your Worship. So in this case, 3 motions would be required to finalize this matter. So the first motion would be to approve third reading by its entirety, a second motion to approve the Section 59 conditions, and a third motion to approve third reading by title.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to approve reading by entirety. Councillor
So moved.
Radwan and Councillor Harris on the question. All in favor? Approve for approval? No, okay.
Your
Sorry.
Worship, could I?
We
could
better
I do
go the same way again since we've got so
If
many.
you'd like, I can
Yeah,
ask
just do that
quickly.
all around.
Okay,
Councillor
so we'll
seat.
start with Councillor Killen
on that end.
on third reading for its entirety.
In favor.
Councillor Ogden? Councillor Hickey? Councillor Rodwan? Councillor Harris?
Yay.
Deputy Mayor? Councillor Sullivan? Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Lowe? And Councillor Norton?
Yes, Common Clerk.
Okay, so motion carries.
Okay, and I do have to read this in its entirety. It's not too long, but just bear with me. This is Bylaw CP 110-179, a law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John. The zoning bylaw of the City of St. John enacted on the 15th day of December 2014 is amended by 1, rezoning a parcel of land having an area of approximately 1.41 hectares located at 1750 Sandy Point Road, also identified as a portion of PID number 000-50849 from 2-unit R2, 2-unit residential R2 to mid-rise residential RM pursuant to a resolution adopted by Common Council under Section 59 of the Community Planning Act.
Okay, so now I need a motion for approval of Section 59 conditions.
So
Councillor
moved.
Radwan, Councillor Harris on the question. All right, it's over to
And
you.
we'll start with Councillor Killen,
In favor.
Councillor Ogden, Councillor Hickey, Councillor Rodwan, Councillor Harris,
Yay.
Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sullivan.
No, yeah, we're on this 59.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Councillor Stewart,
Yay.
Did you say yay or nay?
Yay. Yes.
Councillor Lowe, and Councillor Norton.
Yes, Common Clerk.
Okay, so that motion carries.
And the final motion is for third reading by title.
Third reading by title. I'll call the motion. All in favor? Over to you,
We need
City
a
Clerk.
mover and seconder.
Oh, sorry, I need a mover and seconder. I need a
So
mover and a
moved.
seconder. Councillor Harris, and I need a seconder. Councillor Radwan, on the question. All in favor? Over to you, City Clerk.
We'll start with Councillor Killen,
In favor.
Councillor Ogden, Councillor Hickey, Councillor Rodwan, Councillor Harris,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Lowe, and Councillor Norton.
Yes.
And this is a law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John.
Okay. All right, that's it for 1750 Sandy Point Road. So thank you to everyone for being here again this evening. Do we want to take 5 minutes? Can we take a 5-minute recess, just so, because we're going to have our next presentation. Councillor Hickey's going for that. I'll need a seconder on that. Anybody seconding a 5-minute recess? Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye. All ready? Okay. All right, I'm just going to grab a glass of water. I want to what? Yeah. Okay, can I call the meeting back to order, please? Where's Hickey? Oh, I'm missing Hickey. Is Councillor Hickey coming back? Do I have quorum without him? 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't. 5. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I do. 4, 5. Councillor Killen. She could be going to the hospital. Councillor Harris is up there. Yeah. Oh, I do. Okay, let's rock then. Yep, let's go. Yeah, I see Councillor Harris up there. All right. Shall we go?
They're sitting out because of their conflict.
Oh, right. Oh, he's out of the conflict. Yeah. We're just redoing a recount.
Yeah, we're good. 2, 3, 4, 5, and on. As soon as Barry sits down.
All right. As soon as Councillor Ogden gets back here, we'll be good for quorum because we've got some councillors on vacation. We've got some councillors sitting in the audience in conflict, so. The CAO's gone to rustle up our last councillor. Councillor Ogden, do you have quorum? Councillor Hickey's in the audience. Yeah, here he comes. Okay. Mm-hmm. No. I'm just waiting for Councillor Ogden to, so we will have quorum. With the, oh, there he is. Okay. Okay, City Clerk, over to you. Next item.
Thank you, Your Worship. So next would be the scheduled presentation we have for 8.1 with the new Democratic Party of New Brunswick and presentation of their party platform and addressing St. John's position paper.
Okay, I'm going to welcome Mr. Alex White here. He's the leader of the NDP here for us. I just want to say thank you for coming again. I know you were here last week. It just didn't work out for us. As you know, we reached out to everyone, and we've made some significant strides. I've got a few little words just written up here. So as you've seen from our position paper, we've made some significant strides in recent years through working collaboratively with the province. And really, like I said last week, none of those big moves can happen without the support of the province, you know. So that's why we want to make sure that we are aligned, that the provincial leaders have read our position paper and can respond to it. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you. And you've got, you know, if you want 30 minutes, and then we'll take some questions, a few minutes of questions from the councillors. If that works for you.
That works great. I'll try to not talk for 30 minutes.
Okay,
I have a
sounds
problem
good.
stopping talking once in a while. But I'm glad you mentioned collaboration, because that's honestly the framework that I believe is required between any level of government, all levels of government. I didn't start out in provincial politics. Some of you might remember that I ran for city council actually back in 2016 in Ward 3 with
exactly.
you and Councillor Lowe.
Yep.
Thank you very much again for having me back. Actually, my first experience in this room was when I won class president in grade 4 and sat in Elsie Wayne's chair. But that was quite some time ago. So the NDP's platform, currently with the Legislative Library, not quite finalized, being costed, but we do have a lot of things that we're going to be putting forward. For example, if we're going to talk about the big pain points that everyone seems to be talking about, which is cost of living, healthcare, and housing, most of which are addressed everywhere all the time these days. If we're going to talk about healthcare, we can talk about the need for doctors to take on more patients. But that's not the solution to the problem. The solution is that we don't have enough doctors. We need recruitment and retention. We need to be able to look at people who want to come here, who can come here, and help alleviate the burden that's currently on the system. You can help with this frontline service. That's what we actually need if you want to talk healthcare. You want to talk healthcare, you talk about finding ways to reduce the wait times in hospitals, which we all understand has been one of the main problems that's been going on in this province for the last few years. And it came after the closing of several hospitals in previous years before COVID, where patients no longer had anywhere to go, so they went to the bigger hospitals, but those bigger hospitals didn't get more staff. And then the job conditions deteriorated. People who were working there stopped working there, and now you have a system that has effectively been starved, and it's in desperate need of revitalization. And there's a lot of different ways to do this, but the real way to deal with the problem of not enough people is to bring in more people. It sounds very simple. It's a complex solution, but it's the actual simple fact. If you need more people to do a job, you find a way to get the people to do the job. I don't care what job you're talking about, construction, teachers, doctors, you find ways to incentivize and you bring them here and you make sure that they want to stay. You make their jobs worth it and they're going to come, and just these people being here will make everyone's lives easier. You want to talk healthcare? Let's talk about mental health real quick. Has anybody ever thought that mental health should be under Medicare? You talk to any mental health professional, they're going to think that mental health should be under Medicare. We would do that. We would put 5 visits a year to a mental health professional under Medicare, on top of whatever you get from private insurance through your work. Because I go to therapy. I go to therapy once every 4 weeks. It's expensive. I don't have insurance, and it is a costly thing. We're finally catching up to the idea that medicine isn't just this, it's also your teeth, it's your mental health. And hopefully soon, your eyes will be a big part of it as well. Because if you want people to live in this province and have a good quality of life, you have to provide them with a good quality of life. Sorry for looking away, I'm just getting my notes back up here.
It's all good.
Thank you. We look at healthcare. I had a car accident on February 22nd, 2021 on Sandy Point Road. It had just started snowing. I went around that one corner where the bank is sloped the wrong way. I slid into oncoming traffic and I had a head-on collision. I was 5 minutes from the hospital. My ambulance bill was $183. You want to nickel and dime the people of this province? Are you kidding me? What if I had to go far? What if I broke my leg outside Bathurst and they were taking me to Moncton? What's that ambulance fee going to look like? Well, there are so many things that are happening in this province which are nickel and diming everybody here. Parking at a hospital, if I'm going there for a test and I have to pay for my parking and then my test is delayed, so it goes over, so I get a parking ticket. There are a lot of things that are happening which we can do to make people's lives better. And you guys point out a lot of them in your point report. We can make New Brunswick a great place to live. St. John, I've been born and raised in this area. I grew up in this area. I lived in St. John for half my life, and I lived in Quispamsis, like 40% of it. This is my home. I advocated for making things better for the people in this community, whether I was in the South End or whether I lived in Milledgeville or whether I lived wherever I was at. And we can do that, but it does take collaboration, like you say. You talk about the new rec center. That would boost everyone's lives. Of course the NDP would agree to help fund that sort of thing. Why wouldn't I want to make it so that people are going to have a healthy and exciting life? Why wouldn't we want to make a place that people want to be? A lot of the things that you're all mentioning in this report are straight up common sense, right? They're reasonable requests for people in the most industrial city with high child poverty, with people who need a break. They need an actual break. You want to give people a good place, you need to give them a chance to have a good place. We talk about the industrial park expansion. Again, yes, we would be on board with expanding the industrial park. We would look into it. We would support the investigation. And if it comes down, we would absolutely support transferring the lands from the Regional Development Council to the city to be developed. I'm not a top-down guy. I'm not the kind of person who's going to go. They call me the leader of the party. I'm just a spokesperson. The policies come from our members. The policies come from the people of the province. We take these things on. This is how I look. I remember just coming in here, even during the council raise in 2016, and thinking that if the city could work with the province consistently, not just on one project here or there, but consistent collaboration. I know there's a town councillor from up in the north of the province in Heron Bay. He actually went to the provincial government and lobbied for his town. And the minister that he was lobbying to said, I've never had anybody come lobby directly for their town before. That's insane. That seems like the most reasonable thing. If cities want something and the provincial government can help, you think you're not getting enough to fix the roads, you can come to the provincial government and lobby, like ask for these things. Because it's our job to make sure everybody around here, I don't want to break my tires as I'm driving down a road. I don't want to have half the city shut down. I don't want to have the Harbor Bridge shut down for 4 years. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we can do. But then we get into the big ones. And this is where collaboration is really coming in. Because you talk about affordable housing, for example. If you can't tell, I'm just going down the list that I have here at this point. Affordable housing is so crucial. My last apartment was coincidentally directly behind Councillor Hickey's place. Actually, I was off of Prince Edward Street. I lived in a 2-bedroom, I'm not going to call it a slum, but I lived in a 2-bedroom, lowly, poorly maintained apartment, and it cost me $850 a month. That apartment currently goes for about 40% more than when I moved out in 2020. That's impossible. You look at the wait list for housing NB right now, it's 11,000 people. 11,000 people looking for low-income housing, affordable housing. So what the NDP government would do, it shouldn't be on the city to deal with 6,000 people in the city waiting for an apartment. That's not feasible. It should be, again, something that the cities can upload some costs. A lot of things have been downloaded onto the city, onto various municipalities. You should be able to upload costs. It shouldn't be on you guys to find the money to buy shelter beds or to fund NB housing or to buy new properties, which I'm pretty sure that's not even within the powers of local government in a majority of cases. Upload these things. The provincial government has the ability and the resources to do this, and we have the ability, because collaboration is key, to go to the federal government and say, I have 11,000 people waiting for subsidized housing. I don't have 11,000 empty apartments right now. I need to be able to build them. I need to be able to buy them. I need to be able to make this happen. Because we can say anything. Rent cap? Sure, done. That is exactly one thing that we would advocate for, because that's how you're going to keep people from getting hit with 30% rent increases and going out into the streets, right? If people are in a place, we have to make sure that they can keep it. But if you're not in a place, we have to, it's a Herculean effort. Housing was the very first thing that I brought to the party when I said I wanted to put it in our platform. The very first thing. Because it is not something any level of government can do by itself. All three have to work together, and there's ways that we can do it. It's not a simple task. I can't come here and say, oh, well, we'll fix it in a month. I got 11,000 people on the wait list, and I got many more who are currently living in tents, right? This is, I mean, I lived in Waterloo Village, and so I understand what it did look like, and this is nothing like what it used to look like. We have to do something for people, right? I mean, this is a moral imperative. I studied economics, and I studied politics, and I studied ethics, and we're hitting the point where these political and economical issues are becoming moral issues. What do we want? People freezing to death in the streets? I don't think anybody in this room wants that. So it's about collaborating and working with the municipalities in this province and working with the federal government to say, we have to make a change. We have to fix these things. So we would look at, again, uploading the costs. We can take on paying for shelter beds. We can take on trying to acquire more apartments for people on this wait list, trying to clear out the wait list so people who don't have a chance of getting on it can finally enter. I know people who were on it for 8 years before they got their apartment, and they got it just before the homeless crisis hit. Before. Now you got people who are going to be on it for potentially decades if we don't do something different. None of us want to see that. Not a person here. And student housing is no different. I mean, we talked about you mentioned the university proposal for a new student dorm, as opposed to cramming an unreasonable number of students into the apartments in Alpha Place, another place that I was very close to. Of course we would support and endorse this plan. If you want students to come to the university, and we need this, we need to make sure they have somewhere safe and comfortable to live. I'm not trying to just preach to the choir here. I really feel like these are very common sense and true things. And they're not easy. One easier answer, though, is corporatization of St. John Energy. We would absolutely support the corporatization of a public utility. We want it to be able to be flexible, be able to deliver for the people and the businesses in the city. St. John Energy is like a little jewel of public utilities in this province. It is remarkable how much people in St. John, when they find out what power is like outside of the city, they're like, oh, wow. And they don't regret leaving, but they do remember exactly what St. John Energy provided. And then we get to one thing that I was actually very passionate about in 2016 when I ran for city council, which is tax reform. This is the big one. This is what everyone has been talking about for a long time. Because what's happening now is not working, right? I mean, we all understand that. Whatever is here now has to change in some way. Whether that is by reviewing how things are assessed. So, for example, we don't have an LNG terminal valued at a certain number and then very immediately devalued by 2/3 of that number. Whether we have heavy industry that is being taxed at or being assessed at a lower value, meaning ultimately their tax bill is as low as an individual's or a small business could be. Whether we look at preferential, you shouldn't need a lobbyist, right, to get a good tax deal. You shouldn't need a lobbyist. I can't afford one. So what I would propose is that we don't just look at industrial tax revenue staying in a city. That can be something that we examine. But we allow cities to set, say, industrial tax rates over and above what the provincial rate is. We give cities more options for finding sources of revenue. We find ways that cities can have an income other than taxing people's homes and businesses. Because with that one tool, I mean, we've seen it. Taxes are down for lowest they've been in 20 years in this city. But it's because for an average person, their assessments have skyrocketed. So the tax rates have been able to go down. My house has gone up where I live by $150,000, $200,000. I put on, there's a new deck, but it's not going to do that much to it. So we have to look at putting together some way to give cities more fiscal tools, more revenue tools. Because if the city can bring in more money in other ways, then you can afford to put that money into social benefits for the people in the city. You could put more towards housing or entertainment or culture or infrastructure. There's all kinds of things that if you had the ability to find other tools, other ways of getting revenue, that you'd benefit. And to get back to the actual tax, industrial tax staying in the city, it's something, again, that would be examined. But my fear is, and we've seen this play out on a national stage, and we've seen it play out on an international stage, is that if cities have the ability to set their own industrial tax, which I want, and the revenue stays within the city, you're going to have a very clear and very quick race to the bottom. You're going to have cities who are going to pay, oh, well, we got 1% industrial property tax. And you're going to have industry move. You're not necessarily get up and leave where they're currently at, but they're going to, the industrial base will shift to these places. And those cities are still not going to benefit from the industrial tax. It is one part of what you could look at and one part of what should be analyzed, but I don't think that is a end-all be-all solution. And again, it's a complicated situation. Fiscal reform, needed, 100%. The Canadian Federation of Municipalities has said so. We 100% agree. There has to be a new fiscal framework for cities. We want you guys to have more tools, not keep you with the one tool and say, find a new fun way to use it, because that's not going to be what benefits anybody. Ultimately, what I really envision with a new democratic presence in government would be genuine, frequent collaboration between the province and the municipalities. Be genuine and true understanding of the needs. I know that there are some parties who really want, for example, public transportation. Why should the cities have to be the ones who front all of that cost? Why could that part not be borne heavily by a provincial government? In a city like St. John, if I don't have a car, I'm in trouble. Currently I would be in real trouble. If I live out by the airport and I need to get to Milledgeville without a vehicle, it's not a great situation. So again, we want to upload the costs of taking on things like public transportation and put it to the provincial government, because we can do that. We have ways of generating and using revenue. And these are all things that have been costed. They have been taken, and they're feasible and viable and economically sound ideas which are doable. Because if I think of a St. John that I want to live in, I have a new rec center. I have a fun place to go. I have an ability to go to a doctor. I have the ability to go to a hospital. I have the ability to drive my car and not have it fall apart. And I have the ability to get from one place to the other without a problem. And the fact is, these are all doable, but they do require working together. Just like the council works together. We may not always agree, but it does come from a place of collaboration. This is the new Democratic Party. Like, everything we do is collaborative and by nature. And I would take that forward, and that's exactly what I would bring here. I welcome some questions, but like I say, you guys have a lot of common sense requests, and that's what I'm hoping to bring back.
Sounds good. That's perfect timing, 20 minutes. Gives us a little bit of time for
long?
questions. That long?
Jeez, I told you I can't
Alex.
shut up.
It was good. It was good. Councillor Ogden, over to you first.
Thank you for coming today, Mr. White. One answer I need from you, I'm not sure I got,
Sure.
is for 63 years now, St. John has been hurt severely by the industrial tax. I think this year was $9.9 million. And if you take it over the 62 years with inflation, we are now talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that went to the province that did not come back here, which is part of our problems.
Of course.
And we are the ones who share the burden the most of having heavy industry. We see it with the West Side mess of traffic this week. What I need to know is, and we're the only city in the country that's still dealing with this. If you're living in Halifax or St. John's, you get most of your industrial tax. Fredericton and Moncton, which people do not understand, do not have the industry. They don't have refineries and pulp mills. So this is something that, yes, there are other communities that are going to share with if we're successful, but this is St. John's, our council. We're the last people on this, and we have to be the leaders here. I need to know, the day you get elected, will you give us the industrial tax? That's what I need to know.
The day that I get elected,
Yes.
I would absolutely set up a
So
way
we've
to
heard that
examine-
we've heard that for 62 years. We'll study it. I need to know, the day you get elected as a government, will you give us our wishes of having the industrial tax?
I don't have enough information to give you a yes or no answer to that question, Councillor.
That's not an answer for me right now. Thank
I
you.
apologize.
Thank you.
Deputy, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Alex, for coming in.
Of course.
I'm just going to ask you the same question I asked the other three ladies.
Sure.
You know that we're in a bit of a crisis right now. We have a lot of people who are experiencing homelessness. We have a huge, as you mentioned, mental health and addiction issue. Not unlike any other area. I'm not saying it's just here. It's all over the place. So, you know, I'm thinking, do we really need to invent the wheel here? Or, you know, the Premier said that they've got, I think, 7 hospitals across the province, if you want to call them hospitals, I guess they would be, where they deal with mental health and addiction services. We have one here at Ridgewood. Would it be something that you would consider, you know, enlarging that to accommodate the patient increase? Or do you think that, you know, we're going down the right path right now?
What I think is that New Brunswick currently doesn't have a real sole, specifically allocated addiction rehab facility. So I would support expanding that option. Ridgewood should have the ability to take on more of these people who are in desperate need. I would absolutely say we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have to use what we have now, and then we can look at what we can have in the future. You don't just say stop using this and only focus on something new. You say, what do we have that can fill an emergency gap? And we use that, but we look at what can set St. John and New Brunswick up for decades going forward, a proper system that will keep people healthy and safe. So I do agree.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Councillor Redwan, you're up next.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming, Mr. White. I have a couple of questions. There's been some proposals about funding primary care for our healthcare system. Do you think that that's one of the main solutions to getting things a little more in order when it comes to healthcare and getting people treatment that they need right away?
Funding primary care. I mean, primary care is part of healthcare. Of course it should be getting funded, right? I mean,
But is that, I guess, the main solution to fixing the healthcare system?
there is no main solution to fixing the healthcare system. Funding primary care is absolutely part of what has to go into fixing the healthcare system, but we're dealing with a system that has for a long time been starved of the resources that it actually needs, been starved of the people that it needs. Funding primary care, 100% is a part of the solution, but I'm not going to stand here and tell you that if we fund primary care, all the problems go away. That's just not how it works.
Well, there's definitely quite a few things that need to be done. I agree. What changes do you think need to be made to recognize professional credentials? Because we actually, for example, we have a lot of physicians in St. John that are not working as physicians.
Well, you probably remember my last job where I worked for the St. John Newcomer Center, and this is something that I dealt with on a pretty regular basis. There is a wealth of experience and knowledge in this province that is unable to be put to use because we don't recognize their credentials, whether they're medical or anything else. Working with the different governing and regulatory bodies of the different associations, I would 100% investigate what we could do to not necessarily fast track, but to properly assess and accept these credentials. Because if I have a fully trained doctor coming from overseas, and then I say, you have to go back to medical school, right? I had a roommate, trained doctor from Brazil, had to go back to medical school. That's just what the rule was. And that part didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. She did it, and very impressive, but when it comes down to it, if you have this knowledge and experience, there has to be an easier way to close the gap and recognize credentials. So I would work, again, like I say, with the newcomers, with the associations, and I would find a way to make sure that we can tap into this level of expertise and workers and ability that we have, because it's huge, and we deserve to have the best.
Yeah, well, I mean, just so you know, I mean, this is something I've kind of dug into a little bit, and some of these credentials are recognized provincially, some federally. Sometimes it's different associations that are kind of overseeing this, governing it. So it becomes a little bit complicated, but we definitely need to tap into, you know, and get rid of the red tape for sure, because we have a lot of people that could get to work today if they had their credentials recognized.
There's a lot of red tape around this sort of thing. And I talked to a lot of people who came in and said, oh, I was a doctor back in my home country, but here I'm a carpenter.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
And that's good. I'm glad we have another carpenter. But if you come from a history of being a doctor for 10, 15 years, why would we not put that to work? So I absolutely agree that that's something that would need to be addressed. And I will put that on very high on my priority list.
that's great. We currently have a physician in the city that runs one of the biggest hospitals in Egypt, internal medicine physician, has done that for 15 years and can't work. So it's very, very frustrating. But just the only other quick thing I had, Mayor, is just wanted to know who your candidates are in the region.
Thanks. I forgot to mention them at the start, as I like to talk so much. We do have candidates throughout St. John. I would say that St. John, as the industrial city, as Councillor Ogden pointed out, is a natural home for a lot of the NDP. We've got Michael Saunders running in the North End. We've got Kenneth Proctor, social worker, running in Uptown in Harbour. We've got Josh Floyd running east. We have Chris Wanamaker running in St. John Fundy of the Isles. We have Jane Ryan running St. John West. We have Cindy Aubry and Rosse, and myself running in Quispam-Sis, because that's where I'm currently living. So I, for the first time ever, get to run where I live. It's a really great feeling. And the party president lives in the St. John Harbour riding, Jeff Nearing. This is where I feel that the NDP has the most to prove. This is the labor city of the province. This is one of the strongest labor movements in Canada, started in St. John, New Brunswick. We have the industry here. We have the capacity here. We have people who need it here. You're telling me we have a strong labor movement and high child poverty? That is where the NDP needs to be, right? Exactly.
Okay, I got a Councillor Lowe who's interested in asking you a question.
Anyways, thank you for coming representing the NDP. Little luck tonight, you might win 2 seats federally too, right? But when you're talking about industrial taxes, it's close to all our heart and very close to mine. Like, don't think for a moment that anybody's going to move the refinery or the pulp mills.
No, and I
agree, you don't try to put anybody out of business, but there's no way do we get our fair share. None.
No, I understand. And I may have misspoken. And believe me, when I was in St. John, I'm running in Ward 3, I was advocating to keep more of the industrial tax here. And this goes to your concern as well, Councillor Ogden. I'm by no means am I standing here and saying, nah, you don't get your tax. I'm saying that at this very moment, I don't have enough information to say, I'm going to give you 100% of it, or if we're going to keep 10% of it, or whatever. Because the city deserves, pardon me? I am always open to getting the advice. There's nothing wrong with that. But the fact is, the city deserves to keep more of its industrial tax revenue. There's no doubt about that. I have advocated for that since I was, oh my God, I'm old. Since I was in my 20s, I advocated for that. And by no means am I standing up here saying, I don't think you guys deserve it. No, that's definitely not what I'm trying to say here. And I'm open to any advice from everybody. But it's only 9 million. 63 years, exactly. I very much understand exactly what you mean. Like I say, I do believe the city deserves to keep more. I just don't have the actual numbers or the formula in front of me at the moment. Unlike the other parties, we don't have access to all of the government information.
We're going to get that information to you. Don't you worry.
Send it to me.
We are going to get it to you.
I just don't have access to all the information the other parties do due to their position currently in the legislature.
Right.
So I appreciate any information that you want to send our way.
I want to thank you for being here as well. It's been great to have you 2 weeks in a row. And
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry about the mix-up with
no, listen,
coming last
no, it was
time.
all good. It was nice. It was nice to meet you, again last week, and it was nice to have you here this week. And I liked your words that your policies come from the people. I'm a big transit fan. You heard that last week, and we absolutely need fair taxation. You've heard that around this table, and
100%.
we've heard it a million times. So that's our, and you've obviously read through our document. You mentioned you hit all the highlights except for the Sims Corner.
Oh.
So give us 5 seconds. Give us like
All right,
1 minute.
5 seconds. I can't say how much money I'm going to spend on Sims Corner.
But
I'm gonna
is
say
it
it's a
on your
travesty.
priority?
I'm going to say that I drive out to the airport area all the time.
And that one.
And I got stuck at that
Okay,
friggin'
good.
area for 3
Perfect.
to 4 minutes.
I love that.
Want to fix it.
Good.
It deserves to be fixed 100%.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good. All right, thank you so much for being here this evening.
Well, thank you very much
All
for
right.
having me.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Okay, so I will take a motion to receive for information. And seconder, Councillor Lowe on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Excellent. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next, we have skipped over members' comments. Item 6.
Over to members' comments. Anyone have anything on their agenda for members' comments? Councillor Redwan, over to you. You're up first.
Thank you, Mayor. I just first wanted to say a big thank you to Jerry, Gina, David, and Monique from the Champlain Heights Association. They put on a great block party there over the weekend. And there is going to be a Chamber of Commerce mixer on Thursday the 19th from 4 till 6 at CAA on Westmoreland Road. As well, there's an Yali Association invitation that came out. I'm sorry if I've mispronounced. It's the ONAM event, which is taking place September 28th from 1:30 till 2:30 at Samuel de Champlain. And the only other thing I have to say, Mayor, is that we seem to be getting a whole lot of illegal dumping happening in the east side, and I know there's other areas of the city too, but I seem to be getting calls weekly. And so I highly encourage people to put their garbage out at the end of their road. If they need bulky item pickup, you're allowed to do 3 twice a year. They can call 658-4455. It is completely unacceptable to be throwing garbage into the woods. And if you can't afford a bag tag, you can reach out to the field house in the east side, but it's absolutely unacceptable, and it's just making for a really terrible looking areas of the city, and staff are having to go out. It's something that needs to be changed. And if anybody needs any help mitigating any of this, they're welcome to call me at 977-3846. And I want to stop seeing the garbage being dropped off, especially in Forest Hills.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sullivan, over to you.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just for folks out there, a new piece of recreation infrastructure opened today. After a summer of watching them dig a hole at the end of Millage Avenue, St. John has a brand new launch haul-out ramp for boats. It's not just the crumbling end of a road anymore. It is actually a real boat launch ramp. I've been watching Miami boat ramps on my socials, and I can't wait to start watching St. John boat ramps. The weekends in the autumn are beautiful in the St. John River. It's there for you. Can't wait to see you on the water.
Thank
And
you.
certainly thanks to our engineering staff for driving this. And I apologize if I've been driving them crazy about it.
That's great. I can't wait to see that myself. Councillor Ogden, over to you.
Yeah, I'd like to send condolences to the family of Mac Smith. Mac taught at New Albert School, Princess Elizabeth School, St. John High. He was one of the key aspects of women's volleyball in New Brunswick, and also hockey. Mac coached me. I later went on to teach with him. And he's just a wonderful, wonderful man. And a lot of people really, really miss Mac. Extremely kind person. And I would like to do a shout out to Councillor Sullivan. I know, being a former boater, that he's worked really hard and was the impetus to get that boating ramp launched. And I'd like to thank him for that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hickey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to offer condolences to the family of John Surratt, who was the gentleman that was found deceased in one of our encampments this weekend. The situation on our streets in St. John with 340 people living in homelessness continues to be unacceptable. I continue to echo our call on all levels of government to step up as we continue to fail communities and continue to leave them on the front lines of the housing, mental health, and addictions crisis. It's incumbent on all of us to continue to make an effort to act and to act with urgency. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I just want to say a thank you to Director O'Reilly and staff and City Police for dealing with some of the traffic issues that we've had in the last couple of weeks over at the Milford-Randolph area. I know it's been tough, and he's posted about seven initiatives that they've been working on. And some of those are working with the partners with MB Southern and removing a sign so there'll be more visibility. So there's been a couple of about 7 things that they've been working on over there. So I want to thank them because and I know that the residents have appreciated their work on this. There's a couple other things. I did tour One Bayard. It's going to be transformed into seniors housing, mostly 1 bedrooms. It's a great little building. It's solid, and it's right across the parking lot from St. Joe's, so it's perfect. I took the inaugural flight of Pascan Air down to Halifax and back last week, and that was great too. So that will connect Bathurst to Halifax, or to St. John, sorry. It'll go Bathurst, St. John, Halifax. It'll leave Halifax, it'll come back to St. John. It'll leave St. John, it'll go back to Halifax. Leave Halifax, go back to St. John, and then return to Bathurst. So it means that we'll have 2 trips daily to Halifax from St. John. So that's great for connectivity for us. The announcement of the Sunnyside Tiny Homes was great last week. That I love that when we see partners that are private partners and citizens step up to answer that call. So that's really encouraging for us. Looking forward to all of that. Attended the National Firefighters Memorial Ceremony, and we honored those that lost their lives in the line of duty, actually on the job, or ended up with complications from work that created situations for them where they just couldn't survive. So that was very moving. We had firefighters from across the province as well as Maine join us, so that was very nice as well. And it's Municipality Week this week, so I want to say thank you and recognize the staff here at the City of St. John, the elected representatives, the volunteers, all of the dedicated people that get together to really get behind the wheels and make things work for the City of St. John. And you see that this city is on the move. There's lots of partners that are really all pushing for St. John. We're all moving the city forward. So it's Municipality Week. So when you see some of our staff out there in the wild, make sure you recognize them this week. Thanks, everyone. All right, next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next on the agenda was a presentation 8.2 St. John Community Arts Board, and I wanted to notify Council that they had to cancel the presentation tonight as the chair was not available. And so I would recommend passing a motion to defer this item to a future council meeting.
First and seconded. Okay, on the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next item is under the consideration of bylaws section of the agenda, 10.1, and this is a zoning bylaw amendment and rescission of previous section 59 condition for property at 3600 to 3630 Westfield Road.
Commissioner Poffroff, over to you, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and
There we
members
go.
of council. Before you this evening for 3rd reading is an application for a rezoning and Section 59 amendment that was submitted by Dick Hickey for properties located at 3600 and 3630 Westfield Road. Included in this file is staff-led amendments to the zoning bylaw, including amendments to the mini home park residential zone. The rezoning, Section 59 amendments, and text amendments will permit the development of a mini home community with local commercial uses. The application received first and second reading on September 3rd, following the required public hearing, and I can confirm that all legislative requirements of the Community Planning Act have been met, and the item is now before you to move forward with 3rd reading.
Thank you. I don't see any questions, and Councillor Hickey has declared a conflict on this one. So City Clerk, over to you for the motions, please.
This requires 5 motions. There are 2 separate zoning bylaws here. So for the first bylaw, it's approving the reading by summary, then approving the reading by title, if we could start with those.
Okay, so approve reading by summary. Councillor Lowe and the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Councillor Harris, you're in favor, right? Yeah, okay.
In favor, yeah.
Good, thanks. Okay,
And so this is titled Bylaw Number CP 110-174, a law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John. And the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw is related to amendments to the Mini Home Park Residential RP Zone to support a proposed development at 3600 Westfield Road and 3630 Westfield Road, and to assist other similar future developments. Proposed revisions to the RP zone will permit compatible commercial uses and will also incorporate regulations currently established in the city's mobile home parks bylaw related to application requirements, servicing, landscaping, and amenity space.
okay, so I need a motion to approve reading by title. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Redwan on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John.
Okay, next 3.
And next is approve third reading by entirety.
Approve third reading by entirety. Councillor Sullivan and the deputy on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John. The zoning bylaw of the City of St. John enacted on the 15th day of December 2014 is amended by amending Schedule A, the zoning map of the City of St. John by rezoning a piece of land having an area of approximately 70,749 square meters located at 3600 Westfield Road, also identified as PID 00-29553, and 3630 Westfield Road, also identified as PID 550-63614, from rural settlement to mini home park residential.
Okay. Next motion is a motion for rescission of previous Section 59 conditions. Councillor Lowe and Councillor Sullivan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
And finally, approve third reading by title.
Third reading by title. The deputy,
So moved.
Councillor Ogden on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John.
Next item, City Clerk.
Next is item 10.2, and this is a zoning bylaw amendment, Central Peninsula School, Sydney Street, Charlotte Street, St. James Street, third reading.
Commissioner Poffenroff, over to you, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council. Before you this evening for third reading is an application for a rezoning that was submitted by the New Brunswick Department of Transportation and Infrastructure for a series of properties located on St. James Street, Sydney Street, Charlotte Street, and Britton Street. The rezoning will permit the development of a K-8 school, early learning center, and a community hub. The application received first and second reading on September 3rd, following the required public hearing, and I can confirm that all legislative requirements of the Community Planning Act have been met, and the item is now before you to move forward with third reading. Thank you.
Okay. Don't see any questions, so City Clerk, over to you for the motions.
This one just requires 2, approve third reading by entirety and then by title.
Approve third reading by entirety. Councillor Lowe and Councillor Hickey on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John. The zoning bylaw of the City of St. John enacted on the 15th day of December 2014 is amended by amending Schedule A, the zoning map of the City of St. John by rezoning a parcel of land having an area of approximately 9462.62 square meters located at 88 St. James Street, 81 Britton Street/Rainbow Park, 87 Britain/Rainbow Park, 93 Britain Street/Rainbow Park, 95 Britain Street/Rainbow Park, 92 St. James Street, 94-96 St. James Street, 98 to 100 St. James Street, 102 and 104 St. James Street, 112 St. James Street, 114 to 120 St. James Street, 124 St. James Street, 191 to 195 Sydney Street, 197 to 199 Sydney Street, 201 Sydney Street/Rainbow Park, 203 Sydney Street/Rainbow Park, 205 Sydney Street/Rainbow Park, 214 Charlotte Street, 0 Charlotte Street/Rainbow Park, 0 Charlotte Street, also identified as PIDs 55025332, 40s 1834, 40s 1842, 40s 1859, 40s 1867, 40s 1875, 55242192, 40s 1909, 40s 1917, 40s 2238, 40s 2402, 40s 2246, 40s 1560, 40s 2220, 40s 1487, 55019731, 40s 1537, 40s 1545, 40s 1529, and 40s 1552 from urban center residential and park to neighborhood community facility.
Going once.
Exactly. Okay. So I need, now I need a motion to approve third reading by title. Okay, Councillor Harris, sorry, Councillor Hickey and Councillor Ogden on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, sorry. Councillor Lowe, over to you.
Yeah. Now that this is a third reading, I would like the city manager to notify DTI that they can come down. They're a total disgrace. One caught fire the other day, and the iron paint is off the 3 they wanted to take off, right? And it's such a mess down there. It's just the people are complaining. There's couches all over the street and everything. So if DTI would be notified, the zoning's gone through all 3 readings. It's theirs now. Done.
Sounds good. All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John.
Next item, City Clerk.
Next is 10.3, a zoning bylaw amendment with Section 59 conditions for 1277 Old Black River Road.
I'm handing this off to Ms. Poffenroff as well, Commissioner of Growth.
Thank you again, Your Worship and members of council. Before you for third reading is an application for a rezoning that was submitted by Don Moore Surveys and Engineering Ltd. for the property located at 1277 Old Black River Road. The rezoning will establish a 3-unit dwelling as a permitted use. The application received first and second reading on September 3rd, following the required public hearing, and I can confirm that all legislative requirements of the Community Planning Act have been met, and the item is now before you to move forward with third reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any questions, so City Clerk, over to you.
With this item, we require 3 motions: approval third reading by title, approval of Section 59, and approval of third reading by title.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve third reading by entirety. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Lowe on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John. The zoning bylaw of the City of St. John enacted on the 15th day of December 2014 is amended by amending Schedule A, the zoning map of the City of St. John, by rezoning a piece of land having an area of approximately 9,820 square meters located at 1277 Old Black River Road, also identified as PID number 551-00135, from rural residential to low-rise residential pursuant to a resolution adopted by Common Council under Section 59 of the Community Planning Act.
Okay, perfect. Now I'll take a motion to approve, for approval of Section 59 conditions. Councillor Radwan, the deputy, on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And third reading by title.
And then I'll take a motion to approve third reading by title. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Lowe on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John.
Next item, City Clerk.
Next is item 10.4, and it's a zoning bylaw amendment and rescission of previous section 59 conditions for 1670 and 1676 Hickey Road.
Okay, over to you, Commissioner Poffenroff.
Thank you again, Your Worship. This file is an application for a rezoning and Section 59 amendment that was submitted by Joyce E. Barrett for the property located at 1670 Hickey Road and part of 1676 Hickey Road. The rezoning of a portion of 1676 Hickey Road and the Section 59 amendment for 1670 Hickey Road will permit the expansion of a supportive facility. The application received first and second reading on September 3rd, following the required public hearing, and I can confirm that all legislative requirements of the Community Planning Act have been met, and the item is now before you to move forward with third reading. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any questions. Over to you, City Clerk, for the motions required.
3 motions in this case: third reading approval in entirety, rescission of previous section 59, and third motion approved, third reading by title.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to approve third reading by entirety. The deputy
So
and
moved.
Councillor Harris on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John. The zoning bylaw of the City of St. John enacted on the 15th day of December 2014 is amended by amending Schedule A, the zoning map of the City of St. John, by rezoning a piece of land having an area of approximately 2,820 square meters located at 1676 Hickey Road, also identified as PID number 5519810, from 2-unit residential to neighborhood community facility.
Okay. Next, I need a motion for rescission of previous Section 59 conditions. Deputy, Councillor Hickey on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And one more motion for third reading by title.
Motion to approve third reading by title. Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Lowe on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John.
Next item, City Clerk.
Next is, we had done 10.5, so next is 10.6, traffic bylaw amendment, speed limit reduction, Sandy Point Road / Foster Thurston.
Okay, this one I'm handing to Commissioner Huguenot.
Good evening,
I
Your
hate to
Worship,
break the streak, but it's over to you.
and members of council. Before you this evening is third reading of a bylaw that would amend the traffic bylaw to address a problematic intersection. There's a 300-meter section of Sandy Point Road and Foster Thurston near where the zoo used to be. The speed limit would be reduced to 40 kilometers an hour, and that would be an interim measure before the construction of a roundabout at this location in 2025.
Okay, not seeing any questions. City Clerk, over to you for the required motions.
Just two required in this case: approval, third reading by entirety, and third reading by title.
Okay, motion to approve third reading by entirety. The deputy, Councillor Lowe on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
A bylaw to amend a bylaw respecting the traffic on streets in the City of St. John, bylaw number MV 10.1 and amendments thereto. A bylaw of the City of St. John entitled Bylaw Respecting the Traffic on Streets in the City of St. John, bylaw number MV 10-1 and amendments thereto, enacted on the 7th day of October 2019, is hereby amended as follows. Number 1, Schedule L2, 40-kilometer-hour speed limit is amended by adding the following words under the following headings: Street, Sandy Point Road limit, Foster Thurston Drive to 150 meters southerly. Street, Foster Thurston Drive, limit Sandy Point Road to 150 meters northerly.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve third reading by title. Deputy and Councillor Sullivan on the question. All in favor? Oh, sorry.
Aye.
Sorry. Councillor Ogden, you had a question?
Yes, I think this is great, but I would encourage us, especially Commissioner Fudge, to spend more money next year on slowing traffic. It's a question I get asked every day. To have more speed bumps, to lower more speed limits, and just to make the city much safer. People are not feeling safe in the city because of a few people driving very, very fast. And I think that, as Tim O'Reilly thinks that, the engineering part of it, that you can slow people down by narrowing streets, planting trees along the way, and having more speed bumps. But we have many, many more streets. One street that we have is Bar Cove Road, that they are getting one, but Mr. Hector called me the other day and a car went right into his house. And a house that we were painting on Deferral Road and Church Avenue in the last year and a half has had 3 cars go into right at that really bad corner. And we need to spend more money on sidewalks, repair. We don't need brand new concrete sidewalks, but just safe places for people to walk, slow the traffic down, and we need more of the lights that you can push to walk across. Even homeless people who are down on Crown Street, they race down Crown Street. We just recently did a mural on City Road. You can just watch them race. We've got to stop building a city that's building cars to get in and out of the city and start thinking about the people who live inside the city, because it's not safe right now. And I'd like to see us do much more of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So on the motion for this 10-6, I'm going to call again, so we've got a mover and a seconder to approve third reading by title. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A bylaw to amend a bylaw respecting the traffic on streets in the city of St. John, bylaw number MV 10.1 and amendments thereto.
Next item, City Clerk.
Next is under business matters, item 12.1, the 2024 work plan update.
Okay, this one is going over to the CAO. This is his work plan. He's going to report, well, his and staff's work plan. He's going to report on this for us. 12.1. Just put it on the screen a moment. Over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. Just make sure the screen comes up. There we go. As your CAO, I'm here this evening to present status update on the 2024 Strategic Initiatives Plan. So Council is aware, but for public's information, the plan is derived primarily from Council's priorities in the 10-year strategic plan, but also, as you recall earlier this year, we merged the EY report, so we're tracking one consolidated strategic initiatives report. In terms of capacity, when it comes to capacity, has been the situation for some time. We all have the desire to do more than we have capacity to undertake, but I must say I'm very proud of the team and the performance of the organization and the work that is being done across the board, and as you'll see with a number of updates. So regularly, as Council knows, we look at the prioritization and focus, sometimes refocus resources or pivot resources for a variety of reasons, to capitalize on opportunities or complexity of projects. In some cases, we have external parties and things are beyond the control of the municipality. And so we have to work with those limitations too, as we've seen on a number of initiatives this year. So projects that are within our control are much more straightforward, but that's not always the case. So also with new responsibilities for municipalities and our significant involvement on key files that we've not had, that much involvement in the past has added pressure to resources that we've not really focused on. So lastly, when new work arises or any new work gets added, in some cases, we'll come back to Council and have the discussion in terms of reprioritization, which we've done a number of times this year to realign resources. So with that, in terms of criteria, here's an overview of the criteria used in the 2024 Strategic Initiatives Work Plan. I'll not review this in detail, but there's essentially the five criteria here that we used for establishing this plan. In terms of priorities, the plan was derived mainly from Council's priorities, the 10-year strategic plan, council's catalytic projects, municipal approved plans, policies, programs, strategies, and audits. And so the strategic initiatives plan is focused, it's strategic, it's budgeted, it's coordinated with stakeholders. Initiatives in most cases are really intended to have broad, long-term positive impacts for the city, helping to advance and shape the future of the city. So priorities were placed on transformational catalytic growth projects. And then there are also the service area initiatives where we use resources from within specific service areas to focus on these projects. Those are projects that can easily be impacted because these are people who are working in the business day to day. And so, obviously if things are getting busy in the business, they have less time to work on the business. So, and then capital plan initiatives managed as part of the capital overall capital program, and resources are allocated to carry out those plans. So in terms of status, we've got 3 status identifiers. So the green check mark, work is completed. We have a number of those. Green arrow, work is underway and expected to meet the targeted completion date. And then the yellow arrow, where work's underway but will require some additional time to complete. So getting into the transformational catalytic growth priorities projects that are cross-functional. First off, as council knows, we're expanding the delivery of the Affordable Housing Action Plan through the Housing Accelerator Fund. There's 8 key initiatives in the plan that are listed on the slide, from the North End Neighborhood Secondary Plan to the new affordable housing initiatives, to leveraging land, reforming the zoning bylaw, and governance reform. This is clearly a large undertaking, and we're in year 1 of this multi-year initiative, but we're on target to achieve each of the identified milestones. Additional unit counts are exceeding or meeting targets to date. We've developed recommendations on the city's response to homelessness as well, and we'll provide a brief update on that later this evening, using a policy approach in partnership with the provincial government. And our deliverable this year was the Housing for All policy. In addition, the Housing for All strategy that was approved by council in July of this year, and we are working now towards a phased implementation of that plan. With the catalytic project, the Central Peninsula Learning Commons, which was just, received approval from council, in the North End School. So things continue to progress there. We continue to work with the province and other stakeholders in the development of the schools. And in July, we had the engagement session regarding Rainbow Park. As it relates to the Rapid Housing Initiative file, for 39 affordable units being developed by Kaleidoscope Social Impact, an amended RHI contribution agreement has been executed, and so that project is slated to get restarted this month. Another catalytic project, our comprehensive recreation facility, is advancing. Memorandum of Understanding. It was approved by council on August 19th, and work is underway on a second submission for funding from the federal government. And we're also undertaking an energy study on that project. And this slide captures a number of additional catalytic growth priorities. So for industrial parks, and our arm's length corporation has now been created and board members identified. We're planning for the onboarding of that new board this fall, and we're active now on the recruitment of the general manager. Redevelopment of Fundy Key continues. The site is prepared. There's ongoing work and site development. The foundation's installed. Phase 2 permit's been issued, building permit, and we expect to have handover of that site this fall. Strategically, we're advancing a number of advocacy files that include comprehensive tax reform, bilateral funding, affordable housing, the creation of post-secondary education. Our advocacy work continues and will be ongoing through the fiscal reform process, particularly as it relates to retaining all the heavy industrial property tax, which is one of the metrics we want to see, or one of the changes we want to see move forward. So heavy industrial property tax paid locally, as council knows. We want to remain local, like is done with the residential property tax. Work is also ongoing with Government of New Brunswick as it relates to affordable housing, and the IHI building is under construction, and we're hopeful that we'll see some activity at the New Brunswick Community College from that announcement that was made close to 2 years ago over on the east side to see that project get moving forward as well. We will be undertaking the parking study that supports development priorities within the Central Peninsula, a key intensification area of the city. On the agenda this evening was, or later this evening, is the award of the project for completion of that plan this winter in 2025. The team continues to work on the massive undertaking of replacing our ERP system, our enterprise resource planning system. That's a project that really touches everyone pretty well in the organization and our day-to-day jobs. It's not something that will necessarily be seen by the residents, but it is transformational in terms of how we'll do our work, our ability to be more efficient and more productive and use data better. So a needs analysis completed this year. The RFP process has started, and we're planning for award in Q2 of 2025. Regarding St. John Energy's growth plan has been in the media in recent weeks. And as we have been working on, the city and St. John Energy developed the final version of a proposed private members bill that achieves our respective objectives. This is a good example that I was mentioning earlier, where when we don't have full control over a project and we're relying upon external parties where it can have an impact. So this file has been delayed at the provincial level, and we look forward to it moving forward as part of fiscal reform in 2025. In terms of modernizing the city's safety program, it's a significant undertaking that will be transformational. We have a series of 2024 deliverables identified, and this work will continue into 2025, given the complexity and the size of the project. With respect to the development of a 10-year human resources strategy, that will involve succession planning, employee recognition, employee performance works underway on that with key stakeholders, and we're on track to have that 10-year human resource strategy presented before the end of this year. The next one is performance management, where we're to develop additional strategic operational level metrics, enhance dashboards, and establish corporate standard practices. So KPIs for 14 strategic objectives will be drafted by the end of this year, and the dashboard is actively updated, including our housing accelerator fund metrics, and the 2025 budget process will reintroduce service levels, and we'll be starting with that at Finance Committee this week. Implementing an asset management information system is underway and will run through 2024 and 2025. Implementation continues, and the system has been procured and design ongoing. Now I'm getting to the service area initiatives that I mentioned at the outset. So first off here on the list, we're evaluating the implementation plan for community support. This is one that we're active on at this time. Slow to get started on this one with a number of other priorities, but we're underway in terms of the recruitment now. Second is the completion and implementation of the 5 new enhanced recreational programs and services. So we've completed another one. That's the rollout of the trike program and ongoing investigation of the last one of the 5. It relates to the cricket field, and so work will continue on that one. Regarding the development of actions for our social program, our focus really has been on the Housing for All strategy, so this one is not one that we've scoped yet. Regarding the implementation of the diversity and inclusion policy for the city workforce, the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy was introduced in Q2. initial awareness training and celebration calendar with recognition of key dates has been launched, and our diversity, equity, and inclusion action plan for 2024 and 2025 is in development. Moving next to the Central Peninsula Secondary Plan, the team has completed identification of the inventory of actions of the Central Peninsula Secondary Plan, and implementation continues. We're now approaching about 25% of the items completed. About 50% of them are in progress, and about 25% have yet to be started. So we're making good headway on that. The second one is to implement some of the approved actions of the City Market Strategic Plan with a number of deliverables in 2024. This requires a dedicated resource. We're currently active now in the recruitment process, and we'll have someone on board soon to move forward the implementation of this. Some new stall configurations have happened, some are underway, and governance is planned for this fall. The last one you see on the screen, implement inclusion and anti-racism initiatives, also underway. There was work completed in see my value work underway with completion in Q1 of 2025 with a formal launch on International Day for Elimination of Racial Discrimination in March. Emergency services awareness will be delayed to 2025. Another transformational project is the consolidation of our operations into Transit and Rossay Avenue facilities. So 95% of the fleet is moved in. We're waiting contractors and scheduling for just a final overhead lifting crane that has to be moved. In terms of establishing an advisory committee for the implementation of climate change plans like ACT-SJ and Community Energy Action Plan, work is ongoing with completion expected in 2025. As far as our annual symposium, an annual symposium was implemented with the development industry. We held our first one this year in March. It was very successful, and we'll look forward to holding one of those annually. Investing in the community enhancement, we are now have additional bylaw enforcement officers hired, and the program has been expanded, and we're seeing the improved results of having those additional team members in place. As part of the Transforming Transit Plan, while the electronic fares are operational, account-based ticketing and tap to pay has been postponed by the vendor, given it as a new product. So this will be something we'll continue to work towards through this year and in 2025. In our CAD 8VL program, which is the automatic vehicle locator technology for the buses, is in phase 1, and that's well underway. And as part of the 15-year strategic plan for St. John Fire, we're in a recruitment phase for an implementation person, a position we already had within the establishment, and work is also underway in fire prevention, community engagement, bylaw work, and we'll also work on mission, vision, and values. Next Gen 911 project, which is a legislated requirement, requires some fair amount of involvement from the city on implementing technology and processes. There's a legislative deadline of April 2025. There are delays, however, at the provincial level with implementation, but we continue to be engaged and support that project. We will complete the 10-year long-term financial plan for St. John Water. That has been in development, and that's scheduled to wrap up in Q4 of this year. Our enterprise risk management project is well underway and scheduled to be completed this year. And we completed the management services contract for the Trade and Convention Center, and the new operator is in place. This is completed. The audit of Market Square is on track to be completed in the 2024-2025 period as planned. And as it relates to negotiations for the collective agreement, fire is still in the works, but as Council knows, the transit collective agreement is completed and ratified. And the team is developing the 10-year capital program, work's underway on that, and an initial cut of the 10-year capital programs to be presented to Finance Committee in Q4 this year. Redevelopment of market slip space, known as Idole Makahamik, is well advanced, with substantial completion slated for December of this year. For the pedestrianization of one street, South Market Street, construction's underway at this time. South Market Street's closed at this time, and so that project was recently awarded and slated also for completion this year. For Main Street Active Transportation Corridor, we're working to finalize the second highway usage permit that we need from the province. That will allow us to proceed with tendering that project this winter for 2025 construction. We're undertaking implementation of 20 major traffic calming projects in accordance with the traffic calming policy, and specific projects as listed here are underway and more planned in the years ahead. And for security of our facilities, the focus for this year has been on the security at City Hall, with focus being on the customer service area and council chambers. A number of enhancements have been made there. In the council chambers, security review for customer service is complete now, and the design is with an architect, and we'll look forward to making some further improvements for our customer service team. With that, the recommendation is to receive and file the 2024 initiatives plan. That concludes my presentation, subject to any questions.
Thank you, CAO McGovern. When I see that bolus of work all listed, it's pretty impressive, and I love it's all heading in the right direction. It's all of our priorities that we've accumulated for us, for council who's been elected by the public. We have you who puts the work plan together for us and figures out how we're going to make those priorities happen. So it's really great to see it, like I said, all together. And there's some things that have been, I was happy to see. I was really happy to see the pedestrianization of South Market Street, because that was part of this, the South Central Peninsula Secondary Plan. So there's those things coming through that have had on the docket for a little bit of time, like trying to move through them, especially with the capital projects and spending the limited amount of money every year on capital. So it's really great to see that those things don't get forgotten and drop off of the list. So I've got a couple of questions for you. Councillor Radwan, over to you first.
Mayor, I think Councillor Harris was
sorry,
first.
Councillor Harris. I guess we'll go to you first. Thank you, Councillor Radwan.
Either way, thank you, Councillor Radwan. Thank you.
Okay, we're not going to fight about that tonight. Just joking.
McGovern, I guess the piece of the puzzle for me is, how do we get ahead of the curve? The city has been growing, and the province has been, bringing in more and more surplus money each year because of more and more people. We've certainly seen some of that trickle down to us, despite lowering the property tax rate. We continue to see assessments rise, and people will move here, and it creates a positive feature for our taxpayers' money as well as our revenue streams. But I have failed to sort of wrap my hands around with regards to our work plan, our strategic plans, and our staffing is around the staffing, and it is around how we intend to sort of to read the room and hire up and get folks involved on files that have been neglected for too long. I have no criticism about the work plan that you've laid out and the results at all. But I do have, and have had since I've been here, considerable sort of concern around doing the bare minimum 1 year only to find ourselves in a capacity shortage next, only to find ourselves in other growth pressure problems the next year and being behind the 8 ball. So I always feel when we come to this work plan review a little bit handcuffed, to be honest, because I don't know what to ask for to resource the outcomes we need for the growing city we have. I think we can predict a steady stream of folks coming to this city to move here. You know, every single unit we create is bought up, right? We have incredibly low residential vacancy rates. So I guess, yeah, I'd love to know your plan and how you see sort of the lay of the land and how we can develop the staffing and the capacity we need at some of those more ignored files.
Yeah, it's a great question. There's probably three components to it that I would say. One is establishing our baseline service level that we're having discussions on now around service-based budget, so that council can be better informed to make the decisions around the changes in service levels that we deliver to the community. And that's something that we're moving forward. It's a significant change we have to make organizationally, but that will be part of it. Also this evening later on, you know, with our chair of finance committee asking for council's input, we'll be listening to that to understand what our council's interests in terms of moving the needle and making some more headway. And you know, that has been done in recent years with the addition of personnel in different areas, and in particular in the growth area, where there's been a significant, you know, move in terms of, you know, community standards and vacant, dilapidated buildings and those sorts of things. So that feedback will be important. The third piece is around the money we have and our ability to actually fund these positions. And, you know, the provincial government's experts have said that the funding that municipalities get is not sustainable. And I agree with that. It's not sustainable. So we need more money so that we can actually deliver the services that the residents require from us, and to be able to grow and support the city, so that growth is, to your point, is made so that it fits with our community and it's not a burden on our community.
Yeah, and I'll just wrap it up with this, the mayor, and then I'm, you know, I have another further question, just a comment. You know, I think it's comments like that, CAO McGovern, that illustrate to me, you know, we really need to think twice about, you know, just sort of the approach we've been taking over the last few years, which is to be alarmed at the tax rate and to lower it, only to see ourselves handcuffed when it comes to creating the city with the quality of life that people expect, and being able to properly fund services so that people can see the reward, you know, not just the reward, sorry, but the impact of their tax dollars. Yeah, I get it, it's a challenging feature, but I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the response.
Thank you, Councillor. I agree. I mean, we were all waving the pom-poms the first year we got to cut like by 10 cents. We were all really happy to do that. It did feel good, but you're right, there's always the balance there as we go forward. I'll go to you next, Deputy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Excellent report, City Manager. And I only have one thing that sort of stands out to me at this point in time, and that is we have under service implement 20 major traffic calming projects in accordance with the traffic calming policy, and we have some streets listed there. Director O'Reilly and I went out to Spar Cove Road a little while back, not that long maybe. But anyway, there was definitely a problem. He recognized it, I recognized it, and we were told that there was going to be some of the cushions put on there. And I was looking forward to that. It hasn't happened yet, and I learned tonight that there was an accident there just recently. But is there some way we can get that on this list as one of the priorities? Because that Spar Cove Road is being used now as a shortcut because of the bridge, improvements, and the amount of traffic on that road has increased incredibly. And, so I thought it was more of a priority than what I'm seeing here, and perhaps it is, it's just omitted, but I'd like to see those cushions put out there ASAP, if I could. Thank you. Excellent report.
Yeah, we'll take that away, Deputy Mayor. that one, we'll have a discussion with the traffic engineer on that in terms of where that one's at.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Councillor Hickey?
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Through you to the CAO, is there any clarification on the 10-year immigration strategy? I know that that's been part of staff conversation, but I just didn't see it included in here.
Yeah, Commissioner Poffenroth, I'm not sure if you have anything to add to that. I know our director, Dovelstein, would lead that up. But.
I mean, we have our immigration strategy, and there's a few pieces of that which were built into the work plan, which is around the CMI value and build awareness. Those are the things we were tackling this year amongst our regular operational duties with respect to the strategy.
Okay, thanks very much, Amy. Next, CEO, in terms of catalytic advocacy, how do we measure that for success? Like right now, it's got a green arrow associated with it, but how do we assess that in terms of deliverables we've actually gained? Because if I was to look at municipal reform, I'd have to find a red arrow.
Yeah, I guess in terms of ultimately, when does the deliverable occur? When does it happen? So if it happens as part of fiscal reform, which we understand and are being told that it will be in the spring of 2025, then that would be a success. But ideally, we would have wanted to have it in place by January of 2025.
Yeah, I think it's very reasonable to assess our work on it with the green. I just wonder in terms of looking to outcomes, how we hold ourselves to those outcomes and hold folks accountable accordingly. Thank you.
Councillor Radwan, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a few questions, CAO. So one of our strat plan goals is to plant 1,000 trees. Just kind of wondering where you think we're at with that, as well as the 75% goal of having sidewalks accessible in the winter. I know it's going to be kind of a gradual thing that we do. I have a couple other questions too, but that's just to start.
Yeah, on the trees, we did make application the first time through the Federal Natural Infrastructure Fund. I don't think we ever received word back on that response, and we followed up countless times on it with Infrastructure Canada. And so then we made another application recently as well, just in the past 3 or 4 months. So we're waiting anxiously on positive results for that one. So that was one story. The other question?
About 75% of the sidewalks getting cleared in the winter.
Yeah, so that is a metric that Commissioner Hugenholtz, I don't know if you can speak to that this evening in terms of the sidewalks and accessibility.
Yes, thank you. And Your Worship, through you to the councillor. I believe in our 10-year strategic plan that's identified for a 2027 implementation timeline. So there's obviously some advance work that'll need to happen, equipment ordered. So I think work will probably start on that in 2026 and look to kick that off that winter, most likely.
That's great. And I'm just wondering too, how do you think that we're positioned to shift our priorities when we need to? A good example of this is how many unhoused people that we have in the community. So how do you think that we're kind of positioned to be able to shift the priorities when things like that, in 3 years, things have gotten drastic in this regard. There was not a tent in sight when any of us were campaigning. Obviously, more finances could help with fiscal reform, but how do you feel, comfort-wise on how we're able to shift to figure things out when these things happen?
Yeah, so clarity in terms of responsibility is important because, right now, province has ownership.
Exactly.
We have been doing a lot in terms of supporting at the staff level, proactive in terms of bringing together, working with council on a housing for all strategy, the first I believe, in the province. And so there's a number of initiatives we've taken on, but it does come at the cost of something else. Like if you're working on that and you have resources dedicated, there's another file. You're not moving forward. We understand the urgency of it, and we continue to collaborate with the province. But like, for example, this evening, the social plan, I mentioned, like, we haven't started on that. It was part of our plan. It was something we're going to do, but we've put our focus on the Housing for All strategy and advancing that. So that one has been set aside.
Yeah, no, that's some great points. I have a couple other questions, but I'll come back around, Mayor.
Councillor Ogden, over to you next.
Yeah, to agree with Councillor McKenzie, I was told that Church Avenue and Spark Cove Road were supposed to be done by now, and they're not even on the list. So, we're dealing with the public every day. We're the ones out in the street, and if we're telling people that, yeah, they're going to be done, and then they don't end up on the list, that makes us unaccountable. And I don't know, is it one person changing all these things? Because it doesn't mean, like, when we're told that this is going to happen, then we meet with the residents and we tell them it's going to happen, and then we get a list and it's not on the list. It's almost like things are done behind the scenes that are working against the citizens. And I don't see Church Avenue and Spark Cove Road on this list, and they should be. We've told the citizens that. We were told that. And we're the elected officials out on the street. There's a disconnect somewhere, and there's too much power in some place that's not helping us. We were told Church Avenue and Spark Cove Road were on the list. There's been terrible accidents in those places, and now they're not on the list.
Are those two things for budget? For the budget talk coming up next?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure if Commissioner Hugenholtz can
Commissioner, over to you.
weigh in on these.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Ogden. We did identify a number of streets that we had intended to implement the speed cushions on as our go-to solution for traffic speeding issues. I don't know the specifics of every street that was on that list, but just because it's not listed specifically in the work plan, it doesn't mean that there's not other work happening, including in those locations. What I would offer to you is that I will get an update for you on those specifically.
Well, Tim did update me.
And close the loop.
Tim did update me, and now I'm seeing something different. I think we need better communications inside the staff to the councillors. Because if things are going on without us knowing, then the public's not knowing.
Well, I think that the commissioner will find that out.
Yeah, and could we work on our communications in the city hall?
Well, the commissioner is going to deal with that for you, and he'll, thank you. Councillor Redwan, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate it. I mean, I think, with putting this work plan out, Councillor Ogden, I think it's, you're having to try to summarize it in there. So you're probably not getting all the specifics. So I appreciate that part of it. It's challenging to make it a little more concise. But happy to see the recruitment's underway for the community development officer over East. Just wondering if you have any idea when somebody might be in the role roughly, and do you have any idea where they would work out of?
Yeah, so in terms of the recruitment process, I don't expect it'll be until, some point in this quarter. Could be the end of the quarter before we actually have someone on board. It's, ensuring that we find the right fit with the skill sets to be able to do the job. So that's underway. And then in terms of location, our commissioner can speak to that.
Yeah, thank you. Through your worship, the location of the person would probably be at the City Market Tower where the rest of the team is, and then we'll work out of there.
Okay. I understand. Hopefully when we have an expansion there over at the field house, there'll be a nice little office in there because it would make me definitely be more appropriate, but I understand sometimes it's a challenge. I see that we don't have the elimination of the racial discrimination and emergency services awareness time. I was just wondering if you were going to be asking for any funds to go towards getting somebody in a position so that we have money to do that. And the only other thing that I was really wondering about was with the DEI plan being underway. Just wondering how the inclusion plan is going to include people with disabilities.
Yeah, so in terms of the first one, Stephanie Ossick, our Commissioner of Human Resource, can speak to it. I know with respect to public safety services, our plan was to roll it out in 2025. So it was really more to allow additional time to complete the rollout of it to all of our team members. Stephanie, is there anything you want to add to that?
Sure. Through your worship to the councillor, I will also add that we implemented the policy in April and now we're starting to work out the plan. So disability will be one component of that plan for sure. We just recently hired a new employee, Blessing Joku, in April, and she will be working with the community. And but primarily we're looking internally, and the external piece also is within the growth and Amy's area. So we're just working on that now, but it will certainly be an aspect of our plan going forward.
That's great. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe, over to you next.
Yeah, an excellent report. Sometimes, like, geographically, we're such a big area. We can fire Moncton, Fredericton, a whole bunch of other places in. And we always worry so much about cutting taxes that sometimes I think we have to look at cutting taxes, but also looking at, adding people to staff. Like, I mean, for instance, I believe the outside workers one time, they ended up losing 40 people. But I mean, if you lose people, you're not going to cut grass, you're not going to do things, you're not going to have time to put in the safety things on Wokebuck Road. I mean, I think we worry too much to please the public by reducing the taxes, which is very important to get people to live here. But at the same time, we're so big, such a big area we cover, that we neglect doing things that we should be doing to make the public happy, right? Like you mean, and that's how I see it anyways.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sullivan, over to you.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just a note to remind Council, we put the residents' taxes up 10% last year. We may have reduced the tax rate, but we put their taxes up 9.9% last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. That looks like it, CAO, for you, for questions for you. I will just, sorry, Councillor Harris. Sorry.
I have to interject on Councillor Sullivan's point. We never put up the taxes. That responsibility lies with Service New Brunswick. Just as a point of fact, we have no control over assessments, and we had therefore no control as a city over the increase that he's speaking about. Thanks.
Thanks. I think Councillor Sullivan's going to respond to that. Go ahead.
We put the taxes up. We got the assessments from the province. We chose the tax rate. We had the last say on the math. It was a conscious decision of council through the budget process. Now, granted, we're whole lot of balance that goes on because we have one tax rate, perhaps a conversation for another day, but heavy industries taxes went down. Non-residential, the commercial was basically flat. But by our choice of tax rate and the choices we made in the budget last year, the tax burden of residents in the city of St. John went up as a result of our decision by 9.9%.
Okay, so for the public, I'm going to wrap this up on a positive note. That is, if you're watching along, you'll see listed a goal. The goals are there for you: service, prosperous, accountability. Then you're going to see an initiative. So this was designed by the CAO and the staff based on our goals. You're going to see an initiative. Then you're going to see 2024 deliverables, and then you're going to see the status. Now, my math could be wrong because I just did it right now, but there's 91 deliverables. That's a lot. It might be too much, but it is a lot. There's a lot of work there. So I want to say thank you to you and your team. It's a lot of work. It's a journey to get the work done. It takes us over a few years. We're trying to balance all these things: tax rates, assessments that we have no control over, and where do we put our money? Where do we get the best bang for the citizens' dollars. And so that's what we're trying to do, and I feel like we're doing the best we can with the money that we have. So I just want to say thank you for everything. So I'll take a motion to receive for information, Councillor Redwan and the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next is item 13.1 of Finance Committee submission on Common Council input into 2025 general operating budget.
Thank you. I'm handing this over to Councillor Sullivan as the Finance Chair. Over to you.
Thanks, Your Worship. 2 weeks ago, we mentioned that council would have their homework in the same way we did last year. And I'm just going to ask you to chair this, just to go around the horseshoe and give councilors an opportunity to share based on our plans with the city, what their hopes would be to see involved in budget for 2025. I'm not sure if all of our councilors are now present there. I'm not sure if everybody's there online, but just perhaps an ask through you to the common clerk that if we have councilors who are absent tonight, if we could include their time at our next council meeting so they have the same opportunity. And just, for example, I'll kick things off. It's kind of tough after the city CAO talks about those 91 deliverables. I really don't want to add anything to the plate, but I'll give you my two. When I did my homework on this, last year I talked about really roundabouts and modernizing our intersections, and I won't change. I'm going to stay consistent. This year we've designed one for construction next year, so if next year we can design one for the following year and just keep that ball rolling, I would be happy. And the other piece, certainly we're a growing city, which is good, but we've got to manage the growth. And one of the pieces we've talked about with regards to public safety and growth is perhaps make an ask to the St. John Police Service about what kind of resources they need maybe to increase the service and availability there. I think we've got to manage the growth. We're a growing city. We've all talked about the pressures that are there, so that would be my 2 cents. Thanks very much, Your Worship, and for council, your finance committee is sitting with their ears on and their pencils ready to take notes.
Councillor Killen, do you want to kick us off?
Sure thing, Your Worship. I think the big theme for me is just that growth readiness piece. Like, what are we doing to ensure we have a level of service for our very fast growing population? I know that we've had like a bunch of infrastructure projects. There's so much traffic calming stuff going on. There's industrial impact. We now know very clearly that the port is growing, JDI is growing, everything's growing. So I just would love to see, are we adding more human resources? Are we going to be pushing for more levels of service for the community and to ensure that people are being served appropriately? And, I think Councillor Lowe mentioned this earlier about the folks that were let go from Local 18 because of our financial restrictions. And so what does that look like in expanding our workforce again to accommodate what I don't think is going to be slowing down anytime soon? And that's definitely going to involve looking at how does Sims Corner look? How do some of these big areas look that are being impacted by rail traffic and truck traffic and things like that? So just the more input and support I think we can get in this budget for the next fiscal year, the more support that I'll be able to provide for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ogden, over to you next.
Is it on?
It is.
I would like to see our taxes lowered. It's money coming out of people's pockets for food, for gasoline, for the things that are being hurt. There's no reason for St. John to be a poor city. We have the highest poverty rate in the country in many ways. There's no reason for that. It's just for 63 years, and I've taught and researched this all my life, is we've given our industrial tax to the province and we haven't seen the benefits of it. We've had one new school in 63 years. They've built dozens and dozens of schools. We have the smallest university numbers in Atlantic Canada. So we need to The growth is not due to population because we're far behind other cities. The growth is due to the industrial impact. And so we need to tax that and take care of that. That's where the true growth is happening. But we can grow even more. We talk about we need a better educated population coming in. Well, let's take the population we have now that's poor and help them. That's a whole segment of the population of St. John. And I think the more we can do with poverty and education and making our city much more pedestrian friendly, we should have much safer streets than what we have. We don't. We seem to be building a city so you can get out of the city, and that's not the way we should be thinking. We have to reverse that type of thinking. So building more walkways, more speed bumps, all those types of things to make it better to live in St. John, not just to come in here to work. And that's what's happened to the city for a long time. And I think we can reverse that. And again, it comes down to the lack of money that comes to education in St. John and the lack of the industrial tax. And I think that if we can be strong influencers of that, we can build a better city. It's better for us to take care of what we have than to be building new all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Before I go to you, Councillor Hickey, I'm just going to say one quick thing. When I first got on council in 12, Pat Woods was the city manager, and he said you can only spend $1 once. And so I'm just going to keep that in mind when we're going around the table. Next, it's over to Councillor Hickey.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think we have seen our city grow significantly over the last few years. I think keeping up with that growth is incumbent on us. As our city grows, our organization must do the same. And I think along with that growth, what has dominated our conversations in recent months and last year in particular, some of the social impacts that we're seeing in our community, continuing to be strong advocates for that, recognizing the urgency and the effort we need to put into our housing strategy and our housing for all strategy, establishing a municipal housing entity, addressing the very clear concerns that our constituents and our residents have brought forward to us with respect to these social challenges we've seen. I also think that growth comes along with making sure that traffic calming is prioritized consistently. Dealing with the massive backlog we have in traffic calming is an important step we need to take. I've had a few councillors around the table have gone as far as to mention sites I wouldn't dare because the list is long, especially I find in our denser neighborhoods in what occupies a lot of Ward 3. I think it's also important that we deal with, in the element of traffic calming, deal with those livability things, right? How do we address multi-unit garbage collection, something we've committed to have coming this spring, I hope is included moving forward in the budgeting process. That's really where I'm at. I can't imagine that that's much of a shock to anyone by any means, but I think that's where we need to be thinking really around the theme of as our community grows, so does our organization, and so must we with the challenges that come along with growth, whether that be the societal and social pressures we have right now, whether it be the increase in use of our city assets and dealing with those and addressing that stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Redwan, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. It's always hard to do this. I think that I definitely have shifted in some of my views because I think that we need to be kind of overseeing how the encampments are being run in the city, whether or not it's advocating to the province for them to be doing more or just making sure that somehow, some way, whoever is doing it, people are getting resources that they need to survive, like water, porta potties, possibly electricity, possibly a mailbox. I want to make sure that our residents, no matter whether they're housed or unhoused, are able to survive and grow and hopefully transition into housing. So I think we need to be looking at that. Of course, performance management's always on my docket, and we're doing that. So following through with that with finance is going to be very important. I also always talk about labor relations, which is very important, but I think as we're getting into union negotiations is making sure that we're collaborating really well with the unions and hopefully negotiating something that's going to work for everybody. And the big other thing is, city-wise is to be utilizing city lands for growth so that hopefully we can be mitigating once again this housing challenges. As far as advocating goes, obviously we touched on it tonight. Fiscal reform is huge. And I think as part of that, the vacant and dilapidated buildings list and lands being taxed and all of those things is extremely important. So we need to stay on that bandwagon for sure. When it comes to specifics ward-wise, that community development officer is very important for the east side for sure. Expansion of the field house, woohoo! Let's get rolling. Hopefully, some money will start flowing from other levels of government, and we need to keep mitigating effects of climate change, whether that's putting in trees or digging out ditches or whatever, because that's going to save money from when we're having like crazy rainstorm, and staff are having to go out and block roads and try to get the storm water all cleared out all the time. So it can save money. Traffic calming is huge. And I know that what I've been told a lot in Ward 4 is Champlain Drive and Lakeview. But I know, like Councillor Hickey said, it's, there's quite a list. So anyway, that's about it for specifics, but there's so many things, CAO, that you guys have been working on it. The rollout tonight was great, and we'll just keep trying to support you to get it all done.
Councillor Harris, you're up next.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'm just gonna plug in on the things that I sent an email about a few months ago. I know Councillor Sullivan responded to this email already, and I appreciate that. So I was a little bit ahead of the curve in getting my comments in about the 2025 budget. I think we need to frame 2025 budget as a budget for capacity building. The city has been thrust into an austerity position ever since 2018. By my own personal opinion, that isn't something I'm going to wield over the rest of the folks around the table, as I know there are a variety of opinions about that. But when we're talking about moving into a world where we know growth is going to be, I believe, assumed, there is no other municipality in this country that can offer the quality of life and the affordability factors that we do in St. John. It just can't happen. When we're talking about Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, all having permitting times 6 to 7 times as long as what we do here for similar size builds, Halifax included, there is no better place to set up shop. What we don't have is an organized effort and an organized group that wake up in the morning with one mission, and that is to develop housing. Councillor Hickey mentioned the municipal housing entity. That is 2 years overdue by my estimate, based on what council approved. And I understand there are reasons for that. I'm not trying to demonize anybody's efforts. But we did pass that motion around the municipal housing entity 2 years ago. And that entity will create basically what we've all seen in St. John Energy for amazing results on the energy file, we'll see in housing. And we have a similar entity that has that goal. And I think we can capitalize on some pretty strategic advantages. We have really low unemployment for the first time in a long time. But a lot of businesses are turning their nose up at St. John, and a lot of companies are refusing to expand because they know they can't reliably house their workforce. That is a major problem for us, and it's a generational problem, and it's one I don't want to see St. John lose. We have the strategic advantage right now because of a bunch of accidents. If we don't capitalize on that with a really strategic investment on that file, we will miss it. and we'll be just another city that's trying to grow. We need a full-time employee for climate action. This has been an ongoing issue since I got here. We have taken the city's race to zero. We have a green initiative, and that may sound trite. It may sound like a sort of a small issue. The climate action is not a very popular issue right now, but there is money on the table for this city that we can't chase because we don't have people to chase it. So I know Samir is asking for that help. So I would say let's resource Samir. Let's give him that full-time employee who can take our plans around net zero, can synergize with St. John Energy's efforts, and can create an energy hub out of St. John and get us well positioned for those federal and provincial investments. And then finally, we need that increase to community centers. We've got 5 priority neighborhoods. I know there are other neighborhoods that need it. I know Councillor Radwan has talked about the east side. I'm still waiting for a champion from the east side to rise up and to come forward to the city with a proposal on a collective approach to community development on the east side. I don't think it can happen from the city. I don't think it should come from the top down. It needs to come from the grassroots up. I don't know who that is. I lived on the east side for 3 years. I know it's important, and maybe we can find a hybrid, but the community centers we do have not been getting a funding boost to keep up with the level of growth they've had to encounter, the new clients they have to engage with, and with the inflationary pressures that the rest of us have had to deal with. They just haven't. So those would be my 3. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Deputy, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think a lot of things that, I'd say have already been said, so I'd echo a lot of them. I think that traffic calming is definitely a priority with a city that's growing in population the way we are, and our schools are just overwhelmed. The number of portable classrooms is incredible. So yeah, we need to really pay attention to the safety of kids and pedestrians. I think that along with the growth, we are no different than any other city. Crime is up 30% right across North America. And I think that as we grow, we also need to focus on more protection for the citizens. And so I think that, having a properly resourced police department to handle that increased crime, regardless of, where it is in the city or whatever, I think that's important. It goes along with making the city more livable. We went through some pretty hard times, and I look at the city of St. John today as compared to, say, in 2012, 2013. It really is different. With the exception of the problem that we share with every other city in North America, the homeless situation, encampments, that's something everybody's going through. But if you look beyond that and you look at what we're doing in the city, I think that the city of St. John is really leading the way. We have done so many positive things that people overlook for the negative things that in most cases we don't even have control over. So I think we're doing a really good job, and I think we should continue to do that. And that would be making the city more livable by upgrading our infrastructure. When I say that, people think, well, water pipes and that sort of thing. And city manager, that's a specialty. But, not just that. We've got a lot of areas like we talked about tonight that are, a lot of water, a lot of flooding issues. That's got to be dealt with. But we also have older playing fields. We need to upgrade those fields to be competitive. And put in more, we talked about this rising sport of pickleball. Everybody's talking pickleball. Well, we need to really get on that train. And those kinds of improvements will help make our city more livable. I think, too, we need to look at other areas that are going through a very successful bylaw enforcement. We've got a great team for bylaw enforcement. We need to give them some tools. We need to, in my opinion, have them uniformed like they have in Moncton, have them in vehicles that look and, show that state of authority. We got the people. We just need to outfit them properly. And in my opinion, I'd spend some money on that. I think it looks good, and I think it gives confidence to a group of people that are doing a very tough job. So I'm not going to go on and on about it, but I think that from what I heard tonight, the amount of initiatives that we've come through, shows the success that St. John has gotten. And we really need to focus more on the positive. I was on, I was in a meeting the other day, and we were talking about cruise passengers. And I asked the question, I said, I worry about what the cruise passengers think when they see poverty in the city and the encampments. And I won't say who, but somebody looked at me who knows a lot about cruise business and said, Deputy Mayor, do you know where these people are coming from? This is not new to them. In fact, this is probably a lot less than what they're used to seeing. And I thought, you know what? It's not just St. John. It's all over the place. So, it doesn't help with the problem. It doesn't make me feel much better, but at least it's not a problem that we're not solving, that everybody else is. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan?
I'm good. I've given mine. I'll circle back at the end for a bit of a.
All right. Councillor Lowe? I'll go after you, Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, I wrote all these notes, now I can't read them. Anyways.
Good.
No disrespect for the first one. I would like to see us hire another unsightly premise person. There's a girl and a guy there now. I think we just hired one. The garbage in this city's and nothing to do with homelessness. The garbage that exists in this city in residential areas is a disgrace. It's unbelievable. And houses, I can name some right now. There's a couple on the list. But if they're not to be torn down, then we should get control and we can fix them. But the unsightly premise is what bothers me. And when you drive around the different wards, it's the same thing. It's not just my ward, right? That's number one. Number two, I think that with the industry, heavy industry growing, i.e. the port, I think it's time we play hardball with all the heavy industries in regards to the railway crossings, right? There's 6 players that can pay for that, not just one. There's the port, there's Irvin's Railway, there's now CNCP, there's 2 more. There's the container guys that are making a fortune off us, right? And there's at least 4 or 5, most of them are west because most of the containers go that way. But we got the deluxe French fries. Potash is bringing in 3 times the amount of potash they did when they brought in from Sussex. It's steady all the time on Crown Street, 3 layers of cars. And you got the deluxe French fries where they just coming and going all the time. They come in the afternoon, they go out at night, and the whistles are blowing. And there's enough players that can pay for this, and it doesn't cost that much. And I think it's time that we tell some of these people, what we want instead of listening to them tell us, right? And, there's all kinds of things, but we're such a big geographic area. It's so hard to get things done. It's so hard for the bosses and the employees, right? But I'll tell you one thing, and it goes along with this East Side thing. The cricket field. These guys play cricket that I know very well, and they bought the Telegraph Journal, they own all the Windies in town, I can go on and on. They play cricket 7 nights a week. The geese, they travel in the daytime and they leave what's there, and these guys come out and clean what they can and they play cricket every night. They play Saturday afternoon. It's a long game. And I think that we could do, they played Exhibition Park, the center field, and they play for nothing. We don't charge them a cent, and they're good people. They put washrooms in. They cut the grass themselves now because it's got to be so thin. And it would be nice if somehow, it's probably going to be a while till we get a feel for them, but it's in what Brent read. You could go out and spend a little bit of money out there, and you could prove their lifestyle. And I'll tell you, they treat cricket like a religion, and I'm some impressed with them, right? But you do some of those things, I'd be happy.
Thank you, Counselor. I like your lines about getting money too, getting somebody else to pay for things. All right, I will say that I guess when I think about this, I look at what would bring us the best return on our investment. It's obviously growth. So what could we do to support growth? But I'm looking at it on a bigger scale. So how could I support growth? So I'm interested in that. I'm interested in green because that's our future. How do we, climate change, how do we leave this place for, the next generation? So those things. Now, if I was getting into like more specifics, for me, I'm all about active transportation. I want active transportation. That's high on my list of priorities. And the other thing for me is I got cricket on my list just because I've talked to the cricket guys. Our public spaces and recreation. Because when you look at what attracts people to any community, nobody calls up and says, what are your roads like? Nobody's asked me that. When people are looking to move to St. John, the questions they're asking me is, what do we have here for amenities? What do we have for recreation, entertainment, arts and culture, family events? What do we have for parks, etc.? So that's what, if you want to attract people, you want to attract a population, that's what they're looking for when they come here. And someone mentioned that, I think it was the deputy, that, we do have to do our lift stations, et cetera. And yes, we do. So we do have to spend a certain amount of money on the necessities of life, just like every household does. But if I'm, looking at some of those other things that there would be a little bit of monies to spend in other places, that would be my priorities. So I think what we wanted to do tonight really was offer every counselor an opportunity to, just verbalize for the public and for ourselves of where we're going with some of this. You can certainly get a hold of your finance chair and your CFO to forward any other thoughts that you have as well. I don't want to do a round two, but I see Councillor Ogden, you have your light on.
Just one message I want to send to Mr. Fudge and Councillor Sullivan. I don't think we would have closed the Bellier and the Simons Arena if we had invested in them. And I don't think, there's talk about closing the Gorman and the Peter Murray, which would put us back even farther. I don't think, and that was to me not very visionary, but like St. Peter's Field should never have been closed. And I don't think we're taking care of what we own. Those are all assets that could be up and running and could be in better shape. And I think we've got to put more money back into recreation of what we have. And it's nice to build 2 new rinks in East St. John, but we've let everything else go. And I think we have to stop that type of thinking. Thank you.
I'm going to send that over to the CAO, and then I'm going to go to you, Councillor Sullivan.
Your Worship, just to clarify, there's been no decision as it relates to closing any rinks other than the Bellier with the REOI. So, and no discussion that I'm aware of as it relates to the Peter Murray Arena ever. So I just want to clarify that.
Anyways, there's been no discussion on that part. Councillor Sullivan, over to you to wrap us up on this one.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm going to use my chairmanship privilege to add one more thing to my list. Just because actually, what Councillor Ogden said, it was in my mind this week when I was thinking about things, nothing really specific, but we have, whatever the term is, right-sized our recreation facilities through Play SJ over the past few years, which means we've closed some parks. We've focused on particular spaces. But whatever we can do to help make sure that our A-level top spaces are A-level top spaces. We have fewer, but I really want to be proud of. I want to hear ball players saying, look, I went to this field and boy, it was really well kept. We enjoyed playing on it. It was ready to go. We were happy to have tournaments at it. We're proud to be St. Johners and host tournaments. So I think we can put a little bit of focus there. On the whole, for council, thank you very much for sharing. I know that your finance team has been listening. I've been listening to the tappy tap of the keyboard next to me. So lots of notes been taken. When you're speaking to the public, though, our budget is still a couple of months away. We're still working on it. So this isn't the only opportunity. Hopefully, this has got some of your creative brain power going. and feel free to reach out to your anybody on the finance committee, me as your chair, certainly Mr. Fudge as your chief financial officer while we craft this budget. But certainly thanks for giving us all that stuff to think about tonight.
Excellent. I'll take a receive for information. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Ogden on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, team. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is an item that was removed from the consent agenda. It was item 5.1, and it's now 14.1, and the title is Building Safer Community Fund.
Who's got a conflict on this? Okay. Okay, excellent. So I got to get back to 5.1. Okay, so 5.1 came off the consent agenda. So I'll take a mover and a seconder off that. Thank you, Councillor. And the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you. Next item is under General Correspondence, item 15.1 on your agenda, and it's a letter from Jay Dobbelstein with respect to sponsorship request for Port City Power Basketball. Recommendation is to refer to clerk to schedule a presentation.
I get a mover. Anybody interested in this one? Councillor Ogden and Councillor Hickey on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is 15.2, a letter from S. Morgan, Public Safety regarding pedestrian traffic. Recommendation is to receive for information.
Receive for information. Councillor Radwan, over to you.
But I just thought that maybe we should send a copy of this over to the police commission.
I say we'll send it to public safety.
Oh, okay. That works too.
How's that?
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay,
Thank
wanna
you.
move that?
Sure.
Okay, I'll take a
Move that.
seconder. Deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is 15.3, a letter, a proclamation request, Seniors for Climate Day. Recommendation, refer to clerk to prepare proclamation for October 1 meeting.
Yeah, and Councillor Radwan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is 15.4, City of St. John's Shared Risk Plan Annual AGM. Recommendation is to council to select a representative to attend AGM meeting.
So is there anyone who's interested in this? Okay. Excellent. Can somebody nominate Gary?
Sorry, my mic wasn't on for those councillors at home. Happy to do it. I've done it the past couple of years. It's not as exciting as our finance committee meetings, but
No,
it's
of
not
course.
bad.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, so Councillor Sullivan will go off to that. I don't think, do we need a motion on that one?
Yeah,
Okay.
Your Worship, it'd be better to have it in as a motion.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. On the question, all in favor? Opposed? So- Doesn't look like it. Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is a letter from J. Steves, Limit on Compost Collection. Recommendation received for information.
Receive for information, Councillor Radwan. I'll take a seconder on that one. Councillor Hickey on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
And next is the item from Committee of the Whole, item 17.1, with respect to surplus land and REOI update. And the resolution for that one is that the city-owned land located on Charlotte Street identified as PID 000-244 and 551-47482 be declared surplus to the city's needs.
I'll take a motion for that. Councillor Lowe. And the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Oh, did you have a question, Council? Okay, good. Motion carried.
Just saying aye.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to that last one, we can do that. What about 16.1?
And 16.1, yes, Your Worship, was the public presentation that was distributed earlier. And it's a public presentation for municipal plan amendment on Alloy Drive.
So this one is going over to the commissioner, and you're just going to read this in for us into the minutes, and that's it.
That's
Okay.
right. Thank you, Your Worship. For council's information, a public presentation is a procedural requirement under the Provincial Community Planning Act for municipal plan amendment applications. This evening's public presentation for a site identified as Zero Alloy Drive, which is part of PID 5503-2924, commences a 30-day public review period during which members of the public may provide written submissions on the application as an early step in the process. Any submissions received will come back to council following the close of the 30-day public review period for consideration before moving forward in the process. Following the 30-day review period, it is anticipated that on October 28th, Common Council will refer the application to the Planning Advisory Committee for review and recommendation. Given this, the application is tentatively scheduled for the November 19th Planning Advisory Committee meeting and public hearing at the Common Council meeting of December 9th. With that as an introduction, I will now read into the public record a copy of the public notice that commences the 30-day public review period, and you can see on the screen the location of the subject property. Public notice is hereby given that the Common Council of the City of St. John intends to consider an amendment to the municipal development plan that would, 1, redesignate on Schedule A of the municipal development plan land having an approximate area of 25.19 hectares located at Zero Alloy Drive, also identified as part of PID 5503-2924, from rural resource and urban reserve outside of the primary development area to employment area within the primary development area. And 2, redesignate on Schedule B of the municipal development plan land having an approximate area of 25.19 hectares located at Zero Alloy Drive, also identified as part of PID 5503-2924, from rural resource area and urban reserve outside of the primary development area to heavy industrial within the primary development area. The reason for the change is to expand the primary development area and heavy industrial designation for future use. Written objections to the proposed amendment may be made to council by October 16th, 2024, and inquiries may be made to the Office of the City Clerk or Growth and Community Services in City Hall between 8:30 and 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is the final item from Committee of the Whole, and it's an update on housing for all, item 17.2.
Okay, I'm handing this one over to Amy Poffenroth for the introduction.
Thank you, Your Worship. Since the Housing for All strategy was approved in July, the staff team led by Senior Manager of Community Support Services, Kara Coes, and Director Dobbelstein have been diligently working with our partners to implement the plan, starting with a zone system. I'll now hand it over to Kara Coes to provide a brief update on our progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara.
Thank you, Commissioner Poffenroth, Your Worship, members of council. Wanted to provide a brief update for you this evening in regards to the work that we've been doing behind the scenes in preparation for implementing our zones as part of the Housing for All strategy. As council are aware, we visited 11 sites recently brought forward. 5 were publicly owned. Numerous site visits with the Province of New Brunswick Department of Social Development, followed with site visits by myself and the municipal engineer as well, to be able to take a peek at the sites and really dig a little bit deeper with some overarching site considerations. Person traffic to and from the sites, site safety for the residents, site demographics, and person traffic between sites to amenities and support services that are required by the demographics that we're looking to support. In reviewing some of the sites, as we were doing the visits, we identified that some sites are not directly on bus routes, no sidewalks are available, soil contamination in some sites, water, wastewater, and electricity may not be easily accessible as well, and some marshlands. These findings helped us narrow down a little bit more to look deeper into the sites previously mentioned. Our next steps are to build out site requirements with the Department of Social Development. With this, site recommendations, we'll have community engagement, site preparation, operational plans, and then implementation over the next quarter. Are there any questions?
Okay, so that will, all the next steps will happen over the next quarter.
That's our intentions, yes.
That's perfect. Okay, that's good. That gives us a bit of a timeline. Councillor Hickey, over to you.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I just want to thank Kara and the team for recognizing the urgency behind this and recognizing the need. I think even more so than our last conversation, we're seeing more encampments pop up in spaces that were red zones are becoming so overwhelming for this municipality to try and deal with that I'm glad to see this plan continuing. I hope this continues to be a message to other levels of government to step up because municipalities are bearing the burden of the responsibility of this. And as we know, we have limited tools and limited ability to be able to deal with it. We do not own housing. We don't. But we have had to step up, rise to the occasion, recognizing that we need to do something. And we are. We're doing our best to do it with urgency with the resources we have, but we need to continue to echo and advocate for more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Radwan.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Kara, I just wanted to ask you, so just for the sake of the public, how many shelter beds are there? And do you know if the province is going to expand that this year?
Through your worship to Councillor Radwan, there are currently, I want to say there's 62. I would have to go back and double check the amount of shelter beds that we have right now, but around 62 shelter beds. And then the province is currently in discussions for the out of the cold response, and that could add up to an additional 40 to 60 beds to the community during that response.
Okay, so I mean, I'm obviously the by names list is getting large, about 300. I'm hearing from some people working at social development, the number between people unhoused and couch surfing is getting up towards 600. I hope the province starts thinking about maybe a shelter space that have mats. So they do this out west where everybody goes in and they have a mat that they sleep on. So it's very low risk for anybody to get like attacked and robbed and things like that. And they do this out west and it's very low cost and it just keeps everybody warm and safe in the winter. It's something that they usually just do in the winter. So this MAT program seems to be successful out west from what I've heard. So anyway, just food for thought when you're speaking with them.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll wrap it up and I'll say that I have sent a letter to Minister Austin for the public to know, and that I will be meeting with Minister Austin this week along with the CAO and the police chief and to discuss some of these issues as well. So, you know, we need the province's support and that's what we're going to be looking for to move forward. But happy to hear the timelines. And I know this has been, it's been a big project for us and it's something there's no playbook for. It's something we're not resourced for. It's really not our responsibility. Don't have the cash, don't have the people, but we're doing what we can because it's our citizens that are involved in it. So do appreciate all the effort you and your team are putting into it, Kara, and appreciate the update tonight. It's really important, I think, for us and for the public to get that. So thanks so much. So I'll take a receive for information. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Lowe on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Councillor Lowe, over to you. Meeting be adjourned. Okay, I'll take a seconder on that. Deputy? All in favor? Excellent.